If you follow me on Instagram, you guys know that I get all kinds of DMs that I usually comment on publicly just so that you guys can see my responses. A lot of times I don't share those DMs. And I feel that parents need coaching too regarding tryouts, picking the right club, the college recruitment process, dealing with club drama or player drama. I have built what I think is going to be the perfect system to help as many parents as possible, one-on-one coaching where you can select a 90-day plan, also have 6-month plan and a full year. And for your big time issues, I have a crisis call. That's just one call. Get it in. The link is in the show notes. If you are interested in working with me, I would love to help out as many of you as possible.
I hate soccer.
Done it like mainly via Zoom and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit different,
this is
right?
different,
Yeah.
you know, because I like doing it in person because
Yeah.
it's just a more natural
conversation, right?
Conversation. But man, this has been like a couple of years in the making, maybe.
Yeah.
Because once I found out that Tish works for Nationals.
Yeah.
Because she's my sister's sister-in-law, so she's
awesome.
kind of my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah. So, and then I'm like, wait a minute, like, can you get like Dave Robertson on? And like, I want to talk to G and
Yeah.
anyone. But how long have you been at Nationals?
So this is 5 years now. It's funny. It's one of those. Every time somebody asks me that, I think it's been like 2 years, and then you do the math. And I moved up like right smack dab in the middle of COVID, right? So I did one of those. I came up here, talked to these guys, accepted the job in, what was it, March, April, something like that. Like literally 3 days. I was going to come up the next weekend to look at apartments and stuff.
Yeah.
And they just shut everything down. Like you can't come up. It has to be remote. So yeah, moved sight unseen. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh,
so
really?
luckily did
Where
well.
are you from?
So I moved up here from Cincinnati.
Okay.
Originally from Newcastle in England.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the long journey. I don't sound like it anymore. It's this like hodgepodge
can hear it.
accent. Yeah.
I can hear it.
Scottish parents, and we moved all over the place. My dad was a Procter & Gamble guy, so
Okay.
we moved to America to Cincinnati because that was his their global headquarters. So
Okay.
yeah, did that when going into high school. So yeah, just been in America since and love it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was Cincinnati. So I ran the Cup girls down there. So I've had
Cup's coming into town this weekend, aren't they? Or next week? Maybe it's
Are
with
they?
Hawks.
Might be just
They
for
might
some
be
friendlies.
playing.
Yeah. Yeah, we were down there a couple of weeks ago, just in their little like Buckeye showcase. They do like 2 50-minute games
Okay.
for a couple age groups. So
Yeah.
that was good. So yeah, I got to see a lot of old familiar faces. So
Yeah. How? Okay, we're rolling too. Because
okay, got it. Yeah, we're
this
live.
is just
Love
like
it, yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
it's just a conversation,
I love
and
it, yeah.
that's documented with cameras and
Yeah.
microphones. But
Yeah.
when you got here, okay, sight unseen. Did you realize what Michigan really was, or not really?
No, I think it was so, always known that Michigan was like, I remember like even back in the day when ODP was really relevant, right? I worked with Ohio South and did that. And it was
Yeah.
always when we went to, regionals, you're out into Cobb and you had to play Michigan, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
right, this is going to be a boys and girls side, this is going to be tough, right? So you'd go and you'd play it and you're like, how are they so good?
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't that. It was like, especially when they had the younger team and older team, you're like, okay, maybe we have a chance against the youngers. No, it was just such good teams and players. So, the talent pool was good.
Right.
And like I've had this weird, I guess, interesting perspective of being able to be a director in US Youth, in the Development Academy, in the Girls Academy,
and
now
now
the ECNL.
ECNL.
Right. So you've been able to kind of see the evolution of everything in the last like decade or so.
Yeah.
And how it's grown and just seeing everything. So we've always been matched up against Michigan teams.
Right.
And it's, Hawks, Nationals, it was Waza and Gators,
Yeah.
and Vardar and all that stuff before. And it was, we'd play at typically, you remember the old Meade Coosa Cup in
Oh,
Dayton?
yeah.
And that was the
Meade
tournament
Cup,
of the
that
tournament.
was the Region 2.
100%.
Yeah.
Especially the youngers, like 14 and down.
They don't do that anymore.
I don't know if the event
It's
still, it might
certainly
still
n-
exist, not to the
it's
level.
certainly not the
But yeah,
same.
it was gauntlets. I mean, your national champions played in that, and teams flew in, and that was, you had crazy talent. But I remember, we'd have wars all the time at Cup playing, Hawks and Vardar and all that sort of stuff. So
The level of that was on par with pretty close to Jeff Cup.
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's been cool to see Jefferson. We're actually going back because it's made this like big
When is that?
resurgence again.
Is that in March?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's here already.
Yeah.
The youngers are next weekend for the like 13s and 14s.
Yeah.
And then we take the U16 and U17 girls because our girls play year round.
Yep.
So we take them down because the recruiting exposure is phenomenal again.
that was going to be one of my first questions is, are you losing the girls? So no, you play full year.
Full year. So we just started this year where we give our high school seniors the option if they want to go and play high school their senior year, they can do it.
I like it.
Because it's spring right before, and it's one of those, like, obviously they get recruited for years and years and years by their high school teammates and stuff like that. So we understand there is a pull to that, and it's, Michigan's tough because it has spring high school, which tends to correlate with the biggest recruiting opportunities. So
that, and if you're making the playoffs, if you're making Champions League playoffs, you're kind of screwed because you don't get time to train.
Time. Exactly.
And Hawks were the first team to do it, or the club to do it, where they go full round. Do you ever think that ECNL would just say no high school?
I think it would be near impossible, just because it's for so long it's been the standard. I think there's you see a lot of, like in the Midwest Conference, right, it's a gauntlet. I mean, you've got Gallagher in there, you've got everybody in there, and they all have composite teams, which are, they're kids that choose not to play high school, and they're all very good. Like they do, I think, 4 different sets of weekends where they all play each other. Like we're going to Chicago to play some of these composite teams at the beginning of May. We'll go with our ECNL groups, and we have an RL composite team as well.
Okay.
That'll go. So there's typically 60 to 100 college coaches there in the weekend. But I think there's a lot of people. But I think, one of the things with the U.S. that I found is it's when you take away choice, people struggle, right, to say, okay, I'm going to do it. Whereas if you're like, okay, we're going to provide this option, and this is what we feel is the best developmental pathway, but you still have the right to choose.
Right.
Then you tend to get more people on board with it. So I think I've talked to a good amount of directors recently that they're like, well, how do you guys do the year-round program, and what do you provide? What is the reason for people to do it instead of high school? And I'm not wanting to take away from the high school experience. That's I played high school and had a great experience. I played down in Cincinnati, and we were, a pretty big powerhouse down there. And it was a great experience. But the world has changed and shifted, and how do we help provide what's best for us? Our program for the ECNL is aimed at the very, very best players.
Right.
And what fits them is maybe a little bit different than what fits 99% of players. So it's how do we help these kids who have ambitions to go play at Power Fours, to go represent national teams, to go professional? How do we provide them the best opportunities so that, and especially going into, if a kid's leaving to go to, Michigan State, Penn State, Auburn, all these schools that we have players going to, is how do we make sure that when they set foot on campus, they're ready to go?
Right.
Because if they go in and they're not ready, that's a reflection on us as well. And then they go, well, all right, the Nationals kid looked great, but when they got here, they weren't quite ready. So for us, it's a point of pride of helping these players get there. And, that's not that we're saying it's bad. We give people choices. If they want to play high school during their year, we have programming for that. So it's ultimately their choice, right?
Do you feel that other clubs feel pressure to offer the full year?
I think sometimes. I think it depends on the level of the team as well. When you have it, the top group will always dictate something, the middle group, and then the bottom group wants the path of least resistance in any team for the most part, right? So it's like, where does your middle shift, on a team? And I think it's hard to change an entire club's programming if you haven't done it for 1 or 2 teams. So I think that's always the challenge of, if you haven't done it before, how do you build it? The Development Academy offered a natural solution, right? Because the federation said you have to.
Yep.
Right? So then it's been about, okay, certain clubs have just continued that. Like, obviously, like you said, Hawks set that standard early, and then we continued it as well. Jags do the same thing.
Yep.
And you go, Midwest did, but they've kind of gone to more of a model where they can choose to play all 4 years.
Yep.
Kind of in that market. So I think you're in a situation where in Metro Detroit, it's kind of the standard of the teams that have access to the very, very top level provide year-round programming. So if you want to be a part of that, that's something that you have to consider.
Cup is in the ECNL?
Cup's in the Girls Academy.
They're in the Girls Academy, and they're MLS next.
Correct.
Okay, maybe they're playing Jags. So what went into the decision to come up to Michigan? Was it a higher job or going?
Yeah, I mean, they were both obviously in the U.S. Development Academy, and I'd accepted the job before the Development Academy ended. That was kind of the next tier, and then spent 80 hours a week helping start the Girls Academy. That was one of those. We were on Zooms, and a bunch of us that were in it before, because obviously not everyone found their landing spot in the ECNL. So it was, how do we provide something for all these displaced girls and clubs and teams, and it was one of those.
How long does it take your players to send out an email to a college coach? How long would it take to send out 100? This is why I have partnered with Athlete Narrative. They have developed an app with the help of AI to streamline the process of emailing coaches. Imagine being able to send an email to every single coach that is at your upcoming showcase. You could email every single school with the help of Athlete Narrative. Download the app in the bio and you'll be able to email every single coach in just minutes. Set up your profile, set up your radar page, and start getting noticed. Coaches aren't going to know you exist if you never reach out. Get noticed. Sign up and get 40% off using the link in the description.
I think having had a lot of success in Cincinnati, part of it was, are you a product of just the environment and it's going to be good no matter who does it? Or, are you pretty good at this? And so part of it was like, all right, I want to test myself somewhere else.
Yeah.
Part of it was always admired, Grant Thick and Jeremy and all these guys that have, they produce every year, right? So it's one of those, when you play them stylistically, it's, I had a very small list of clubs that I probably would have left Cincinnati for, and Nationals was on that because stylistically, I thought it was cool that any field you could rock up to, and you could cover this badge and you'd be like, that's a Nationals team because of how they play. No matter the age, it was consistent. So it's one of those like, all right, there's a real philosophy and there's, a mentality there to develop players in that certain mold, right? And for me, that was similar to how I viewed the game and how I taught my teams to play. And it was like, all right, let's talk about how that would be. So I was in kind of a unique position when this job opened up. We talked for probably 6 months to a year before actually just pulling the trigger. And it was looking at it like, usually when you take a job, somebody has left, and usually that means something's gone wrong, right? Where, for the most part. So I was lucky in a situation where, the previous guy, Kai Edwards, had just left to take a college job, right? And go back to the West Coast with his family. Yeah. So I think he went out to be an assistant at Cal first.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then he went
he got to Utah. And now he's back in California.
Yeah, San Diego, I believe.
Yes.
So he'd left, and obviously done a good job. So it was one of those, I walked into a situation where the club was really good. So it was like, all right, how do we add a twist? How do we add a spin? How do we, take it kind of to another level in terms of really elevating this program to be not just a regional competitor, but a national competitor.
Especially, I mean, national competitor, how many girls academy or girls DA national titles have they had? Have they had any?
So the nationals?
Yeah.
So the Development Academy, they made it to the final. So there were only 2 years of the girls, remember? Or was it 3? They were in their third year when it went away. So they reached the final in 1 year. So Jeremy coached the group. It was I believe the O2s or the 0102s that had won 5 U.S. Youth National Championships. So
that's
they were
what I'm thinking
special
of.
team. Yes, they won those. And then, they made the final.
Yeah.
That was, you look at the run they made, they lost to Sophie Smith and her team in the final. But they had them, and then one of the other age groups lost in the semifinal. So in 2 years, they made a national final and a national semifinal appearance, which, considering it was 4 age groups at the time, is not bad.
Right.
And it was obviously a step into a platform because no one had ever. Not that the Development Academy had everyone together, but in that first year, they had the majority of clubs. And then obviously after year 1, it kind of refractured and people went back to ECNL.
Okay, what year are you, first of all? What year were you playing in Cincinnati growing up?
So I was an 87 birthday.
You're an 87. I'm an 85.
There you go. Okay. So I was an 86, 87. So I was the younger side of the age group.
Okay. What do you think about the age change, going back to what we grew up in?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's that you can find positives and negatives in like everything, right? So it's one of those, I think for the vast majority of soccer, it makes sense because you probably reboost the numbers at grassroots, right? When kids are getting into it, which is that you had, I don't know the actual numbers, so it'd be intriguing to see that. Did the numbers dip because people were no longer with schoolmates as much as opposed to the old format, now the new format,
right?
Will those numbers come back up? I think you'll get the boost because of the World Cup naturally. But you go, all right, the change was made to, quote unquote, align with the rest of the world. And it does in some ways, it doesn't in others, going straight to birth year. But really, the only people that focus on the birth year is the youth national teams, right? In terms of youth national teams are selected January through December. So nobody else does. The goal for most kids in youth soccer is college, right? So aligning it with that makes it much easier for them to see as well. And you're going to reduce, like for us, we're not as impacted by trap players as a lot of clubs because we play year round, right? So there is no season where you lose half of your team for some of these kids.
Yep.
But for a lot of clubs, right, you're displaced and now you lose growth potential. As opposed to now, there will always be trap kids that just slides who they are.
Exactly.
And that's the tough part, right?
And I get DMs all the time about, well, my daughter's an August birthday, but she's graduating and whatever. And like, what are you doing? Okay, let's say a kid falls on the junior team.
Yep.
Okay, junior class team, but she's graduating this year with the seniors or whatever. What are you guys doing? I know a lot of flash girls are just going to stay in their grad year. What are you guys going to do?
Yeah, so
for
we spent a lot of time talking to a lot of the top clubs, a lot of we talked to players, people in the federation, we talked to people in college, like what would be the best thing to do? Because at some point as well, you have to rip the Band-Aid off. It's like if you keep everything as is, you just push the problem down the road. So for us, every single kid is going to where their birth date aligns.
Okay.
And that includes on our...
No exceptions?
No exceptions. Right. So now if we find a situation now where we need to move a kid because they're just unchallenged, right, then you can move them from there.
Yeah.
Right. But it's let's align it all. We'll rip the Band-Aid off. Right. And now we can truly see things. And not only that, but you look at like if I'm a senior and I have the opportunity to play U17 again, I'm doing it 100 out of 100 times because there's 6 playoff spots. There's an environment where you're competing for longer. Right. You've got the opportunity to do things, and the motivation level is really high. The senior year always curtails, unfortunately.
Yeah.
With kids. So, for me, it's a lot of people fall into that, and as well, you get a great benefit of if you're uncommitted, you now get to get a redo on some of the exposure that you maybe wouldn't have before if you were on a senior team.
Right.
So there's a lot of benefits. So for us, we're in a situation where everyone's going into that, and then we can move things off of that if it's the right thing. Now, then you also have to look at it. Okay, if a player goes into an age younger, but their grade level is here, how do you help them with showcasing? Right. So for us, we made sure that in our kind of roster assembly, we created opportunities so that at ECNL showcases or a Jefferson Cup or something like that, we have the ability to bring this player with us. So now they get the best of both worlds, right? Of you can develop inside this environment. We can also then showcase you with your grade level, but also if you're maybe a little bit of a late developer. Like, for example, your typical recruitment, your elite players are getting watched a lot their sophomore years.
Yep.
Your next tier is mainly the junior year. But let's say you make it to junior year and you've really developed, but now you're on a mainly sophomore team. You get the opportunity to now get re-seen, right, by a lot of those schools that maybe aren't watching junior classes anymore.
I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of benefits to it.
So that's a positive of playing down again.
Exactly.
Like another positive.
Because the younger parts of the older grade are typically going to be your late developers, right? So it gives you the opportunity now to really help them because they, whether it's physical maturation, mental, whatever it might be, it's ultimately up to the kid, but they can showcase. Because we've had a ton of kids that have come in, and been late developers. They've been on second and third teams and they've risen and they've gone, RL to ECNL to Power 4, right? And that's, one of our goalkeepers is one of my favorite stories of all time. She's a sophomore at Penn State right now, Keely Titmus.
Okay.
And she was, she played in like the community club. She was, if you looked at her when you were younger, you were like, that's not going to be a wonderful goalkeeper.
Right.
But this kid grinded and worked so hard and became like unbelievable, like captain's captain.
Yeah.
Played all over the place. She starts all the time for the national team. She's at Penn State, but this is a kid who, bought in, was a lifer at nationals, rose all the way through the system.
Right.
And it's super cool to see that, So, those late developers are there. And that's the thing is you have to have ways to help them, right? And this kind of provides a natural way. If you are a younger part of your grade, you now have a second opportunity that maybe you wouldn't have got before.
Do you think the age change is really kind of led by the college coaches they want to know what they're looking at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they have to look at what they're recruiting against, right? So they're looking at so for now, the next group they're looking at is the 2028s, for example.
Yeah. Right.
So you go, okay, I want to see her against 2028s because that's what we're making decisions on is what are the best available players in this class? Because it's obviously developmentally, sometimes you play players up to help them, but it's hard, like unless you are the phenom, right? And then everybody knows what you are. Yeah. Right. But for the most kids, you need to be able to see them against what you're recruiting against, because that's always the argument for needing to be in the best competition platform as well, is because are you really that good, or is the opponent not that good? Or is the opponent really good and maybe you're not of the level that you looked like before? So that's the hard part for college coaches is, you have to, not only are you going to fields to watch a player, but you have to really know the team, the opponent, everything to truly evaluate a player.
Right. You were just in Florida for RL.
Yeah.
Are you coaching any RL teams? Are you just the director?
No, so I coach the 2 oldest ECNL teams,
Okay.
and then I am the director of both the ECNL program and the regional league program.
Okay.
So I kind of oversee it all. So for me, it's important to be there because our RL groups are awesome as well.
Yeah.
And we've had an unbelievable amount I think last year's graduates, so the 2026s, or 25, sorry. We had 6 kids go Division 1 from our RL program. Now this year, we just had our 42nd college commit between the
two teams?
ECNL and the RL. So you're like, these kids are getting opportunities. And I mean, it was
42?
42.
Whew.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool thing, in seeing all these kids have success. But that's one thing I really appreciate about the ECNL is it's not just, obviously the RL it hasn't been around that long. Right, so it's a relatively new thing, but they really do put resources into it. And like the Leaders Cup was a super cool new event that they did,
Okay.
where it was like 50-minute mini games. And so it was the top 20 RLs, because you can go press for 50 minutes, you can do whatever. Right. So it's able to showcase yourself in an environment that is you at your max. Unlimited subs, 50 minutes. You play 5 games throughout the 3 days. A 6th and it was competing for a championship.
Wow.
Right. So no longer, it's not the showcase of
It's something to
boring.
win.
Yeah. And that was
Because
one
that's
thing.
kind of taken away a
100%.
little bit.
That's the kids miss it, and sometimes it's
Kids
like
miss.
yeah.
I
playing
mean,
this
I
team
know
again.
everybody
Yeah.
gets a trophy and stuff, but like, if you're in the ECNL or if you're in the MLS Next or whatever, you don't win many trophies.
No.
Unless you're winning a national title.
Exactly. And that's one thing that is cool that ECNL is doing for next year is all the non-recruitable showcases. So basically your pre-ECNLs, your 13s and 14s are all going to be a tournament format now.
Okay.
So they're going to win something. So
I
you
like
compete to win. So it's cool because again, I think we as a culture went so far down the rabbit hole of like development, but winning is a big part of development.
Yeah.
Like, and I firmly believe that you learn how to win,
Thank you.
and it's a piece of it, and you have to learn how to do it, because if you don't have anything to chase, you never learn that motivation, and you never learn that hurt of not getting it. Right. So that's you have to create environments to do that, and it's super cool that they're doing that now. So you don't necessarily have to go fly off to Virginia or DC or anything like that for a tournament. Obviously you still can, but it's going to be created right here inside the platform, which is cool.
Right. I mean, winning is part of development. At least learning how to win.
Yeah.
And wanting to win and
Absolutely.
being competitive. If we're developing players that are walking off the field and it's like, oh, don't worry about it, that's a problem.
Well, I always believe that you've always got to reverse engineer things, right? So you go, what is the stated goal of our men's and women's national team? They want to win a World Cup.
Exactly.
So win is in the statement of the peak of what we want.
Right.
So how do we create that without teaching kids how to win, right? And that's not to say it's at all costs, but you have to learn how to read the game. So you'll watch a bunch of youth teams that are overplaying out of the back. That's a stubborn principle, as opposed to being like, nope, I want to be Pep. Okay, but even Pep, you watch City this year, it's because everybody can press in the Premier League now.
Exactly.
So that's the thing of
he's changed the entire
100%.
makeup
So
of
now-
the league, so now everybody can do
Exactly. So everyone can do that. So, but now you have to understand that just because a ball is served directly doesn't mean you're being direct. It means you've read the signals of the game. You have 10 of the opponent in your half, the space is behind.
Right.
So that's how you teach players. And then you know what? If we play 3 or 4 balls behind,
Then they're going
they
to drop
have to
off.
And now we can
and
play.
now we can play.
Exactly.
And there's some clubs that only want to play.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, they're pressing you. Read the tactical cue of maybe
Yeah, it's
keeping
coach's
them
dream,
honest.
right? Yeah. We'll just play 2 or 3 at the back and we'll come press you.
But
Yeah.
I don't understand the clubs that just say, no, we're always going to kick the ball off on a goal kick 5 yards. We're only going to pass it 5 yards.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't we ever just hit it long once in a while?
Well, no,
Or
but they're going to do
pass
it in college,
to hit it.
right? So
Exactly.
how do you expect them to deal with it, having never dealt with it before, never won the ball in the air, never done these things? So yeah, there's
And
so many
adapt.
pieces to that, and that's again, you got to teach kids how to read the game, but also it's okay, like we play a lot, sometimes overplay, or you could argue, but it's also to teach. But we also play our kids in, they'll play in a diamond shape in midfield, so we can develop overlapping outside backs. They'll play in a 3 front, a 2 front, split the 2 front. We'll play in a box. We'll play in a 3 back. Like, we do all these things to teach them how to play, because ultimately our goal is that a formation is a starting point.
Yes.
And then everything becomes fluid off of that. So
Right.
by their U17, U18 year, we don't have to be, all right, change into this, split the forwards. They do it on their own. And it's cool to watch because they've learned how to read the game.
Right.
And they can adapt, and it's okay. Our 6 is being man marked, so she's just going to stretch it out here, and now the 10's going to come in and get it.
I've always thought that, like, if you're trying to develop players to play in college and you want them to have the most successful college experience and career,
Yeah.
that player needs to be versatile. And now, right now, I'm talking about position-wise, right?
Yeah.
One of my most successful players right now is one of the leading scorers at Nebraska, Ella Rudney,
Yeah.
who played at Flash. And she could play the 9, the 10, the 7, and 11, and the 8 if she had to.
Absolutely.
Right? And so she got on as a freshman 20 minutes. And now, as a junior, she just played like 90 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And her career has just, because she was versatile, she got on the field sooner in her college, career. It's the same with formations
Yeah.
and styles. And you want to be versatile that way too, not just positions. You want to be, and if you're not teaching multiple ways to play, I think you're doing your players a major disservice.
Agreed. I mean, that's as well. You just look at just a simple example of, all right, if we're both playing a 4-3-3, you play 2, I play 1, right? You're never going to be able to build because you're going 2 against 2.
Exactly.
So, but if I'm playing 2, then we're both going to build all day. So it's, that kid has to know she has to bump up and mark up. If
Yeah.
the team's going to try and build. So, and they have to know those cues without it being constantly beaten into them. Because that's what we tell the girls all the time is we have the luxury of developing you, right? If I lose a game because you've made a mistake, there's not pressure on me.
Right.
But you look at Division I women's soccer, what was it, 25% of the jobs turned over this cycle? And
Yeah.
it's one of those, you go, there's a real cost if you don't know the game. That coach isn't going to go, I've got time to teach her on the field.
Right.
You're going to sit in a film room, and then maybe next year we can try again. Or
Right.
you can go in the portal, right? With the cutthroat world that is now the 28 players, is you have to be ready, you have to understand it, otherwise they're going to recruit someone to take your job. Because
Right.
if they don't win, they lose their job, right? And that's
Yeah.
their family. So, yeah, it's a
College
whole different ball
man.
game,
Have
right?
you ever thought about getting into the college game?
I've had offers. I've thought about it for at different moments throughout my career, but it's
Right.
one of those, like, I have a lot of respect for what those guys do, and I think there's a lot that you love about the college game, but it's such a condensed season. I think if it was a year-round sport, it would be a whole different, because then you're basically pro, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's and obviously the men's side is kind of heading that way, but the girls' side isn't right now. So interest, but for me, I love what I do, and I get to, I mean, that it is cool being able to watch the NWSL or all these things on ESPN Plus and the Big Ten Network, and coached her, played against her. I mean, it's almost
Exactly.
every game I can turn on now
Yeah.
that is on, and I've either coached someone on the field or we've played against them, and
Right.
it's super cool to see.
I mean, okay, you're just saying, okay, that's going to piss me off because, all right, you just said that the college game might change for the men, but not the women.
Yeah.
Can you learn, and this is just to U.S. soccer and college soccer in general, learn from the mistake of 07.
Yes.
What was the mistake of 07? They basically said, we're only focused on the boys to make the development academy. Our girls are good enough. We're the best in the world. We don't need to do this for the girls.
We don't need to evolve with the
That
world.
created the ECNL in 09 to fill that vacuum, that void. And now we're in this like power struggle right now because 07. Do you think that they're going to do that again with women's soccer? Be like, you know what? They don't need to go year round. We're the best in the world.
Well, you look at the counter is almost in the making now because the NWSL is creating a second tier, and it's a developmental tier.
Right.
Right. So you go,
It's
it's
not
under 23s.
pro-rel. It's just.
So you go, and now they're doing kind of what they do with, was it MLS Next Pro, where you can have a tier 2 franchise, if you will,
Okay.
without having an NWSL franchise.
Well,
so
that's
now
good.
you're creating the opportunity for people to go, okay, there is an alternative, right? If I go to college for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, maybe I'm not quite ready. Or I think there's been a real, there was a big wave of girls that went to the NWSL at 17, 18, and now that's kind of really shrunk because it's not ready. Right now, there's obviously some players that have gone in and been phenomenal, but for a lot of those girls, they needed some college or they needed something in between, right? Because the depth of the NWSL is each team has 12 to 15 superstars, but again, are you going to go and give a kid a chance in the pro environment when your job is on the line?
Right.
Most likely not, unless there's something special, which there have been some of those,
Right.
But yeah, it's a tough environment of how do you help bridge the gap, and that's the thing is the college is set up and it's there. So I think it's part of the shift of, and I think it's slow and it's over time, but how do we get, so guys, if you told them the best soccer program was in Alaska, they'd all go, yeah, cool, I'm going to Alaska. Yeah, girls, they're like, I don't know, right? So it's how do we get more girls to shift from I like soccer to I love soccer, right? Because there is a difference, right? Tons of them like it. Not a ton of them love it. But I think guys love it. And that leads to them willing to do more to chase the dream.
That's why they'll go to JUCO. That's why they'll go to NAIA. That's why
they
they'll
will gamble on
go
themselves.
D3,
They're like,
D2 more than the girls.
Yeah, and then you also get as well, you look at the difference of, if you talk to every 16-year-old boy, they think they're going pro, right? You talk to every 16-year-old girl, they want to play in college. That's a difference.
Yeah.
Right? So it's, okay, not saying that will ever go away, but it's how do you get more people to shift to, I want to be a pro? And we started to see it more, to be honest, in the youth. Like, they do want to be pro. We were lucky enough to be the only club in Michigan that had 3 girls go to the NWSL Youth Combine. So 3 of our players went in December and went down there. So
who were the 3?
So we had Ellie Matthews, who's a 2009.
Okay.
So she's a holding mid committed to Penn State.
Yeah.
We had Hope Perifelice, who is a goalkeeper that's committed to Michigan. That's trapped 08, so she's a 2027. And then Lily Jekyll, who's actually in Spain right now with the national team, who's going to Notre Dame. So those 3 were down there at the NWSL Combine, and basically them, and I think it was pretty small. It was like 48 kids, maybe something like that. Just kind of the pro prospects that they felt, and they brought them in, and they got to play and train in front of every NWSL club. So
who's your goalkeeping director? You guys had some
he's
legit.
phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
Who is it?
Ryko is his name. So he does the whole.
Has he been here for a while?
Yeah, he's been here ever since I've been here. So I think he's been there longer.
Okay.
So at least the last 5-6 years.
Okay.
But what he does with goalkeepers is something, and it's funny because a lot of the goalkeepers, they come in, they're like, I don't know, I don't like him, and they all graduate and they're like, I love him. I love him. He is one of my favorite people ever, and the things he has done for me is phenomenal. Like, I mean, we're in a very blessed position. Like, goalkeepers for us are a big part of what we do. They need to be able to play. They need to be able to do all the things, right? And he's phenomenal at it, and really, really works them. So
yeah. So, okay. So you started out Region 2, like a ODP, Cup, and everything like that. And then you coached in the DA?
Yeah, so it was Cincinnati Development Academy. So it was a merger just for the Development Academy between Cup and King's Hammer at the time.
Who'd you play for growing up?
At Cup. So
okay.
Yeah. So small story there.
Yeah.
Right. And did a couple of, back in the day, it was, everything wasn't big clubs. Like, I played at one small little club, Town and Country United, who was they had 2 teams. Right, but we were really good. We played in Kentucky. We're Kentucky State Cup finalists. Only lost to you remember that Javanon super team that won nationals?
Yes.
Yeah, they're 86, 87 boys. So we lost 2-1 to them in the state final, and I still to this day remember the shot that I missed from the top of the box that would have put us up a goal. So it's funny, 38 years old, and you still remember that memory from when you're that age. But so there were the age of independent teams that could go do things, because you would play, like, the peak of it was playing in MRL,
right,
the old Midwest Regional League, because there was no development academy at the time. So, I remember when we got into that, and it was gauntlet. We'd come up, we'd play Wolves and Vardar, and it was phenomenal. Can you
go? Okay, did you started it with DA in 07? Were you?
So I was there. I was there before the. So I started. It was the girls' development academy, so not the boys. So I coached. Yeah, I was in US Youth before that. Coached boys and girls to start. Ended up settling kind of mainly on the girl side. So coached in US Youth, so National League, did all of that. And then when the Development Academy started, going into the second year, I became the director of that, and kind of took over that program. And then, obviously the Girls Academy started when I came up here.
Yep.
Directed in that, and then obviously ECNL now, so.
Why girls? Why'd you lean that way?
Yeah, it's interesting. this is going to sound weird, but I felt like it was a purer game a lot of times of
It's easier to. I've always thought that it's easier to play the way that the coach wants to play
Yes.
with girls
Yes.
than it is with boys.
yeah, they'll listen and they'll, you know,
They want
try
to
their very
please
best.
coaches. They
100%,
want
yeah.
to. They're greater listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's the
Not
so
deal with
it's
the
a lot of fun.
egos.
Yeah. I mean, you get them to. It's funny. That's the. Sometimes you have to try and force an ego out of them. Like we need.
You're
you to
right.
be meaner, right? We
You
need
don't
to
know
be
how
tougher.
good you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's always the challenge, and that's, you know, with boys they all think they're really good, and sometimes you have to be like, no, you're not. You need to do this so that
You're
we can
not all
maximize
that.
you. Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. So yeah, this. But you know, I love it, and that's the. I think like with girls, it's a lot of fun as well. Like they're witty. There's a lot of banter. You have a lot of fun with it. You know, especially in the high school ages when they've kind of figured out who they are as a person, and you know they know you care, so they're able to you know get after you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they run through a brick wall.
100%.
If they know that you care,
Absolutely.
they're gonna run through a wall. For you.
Exactly. And that's when you give them I need this from you, they go do it, right? And they're excited to do it.
Yeah.
So,
You were part of the transition from Girls Academy into the ECNL.
yep.
Can you go into some of the differences that you see?
Yeah, so like obviously when the Girls Academy started, you know, it was a lot of the clubs that were in the Development Academy plus some new ones that came in. So programs like Beadling and things like that hadn't been in before.
Right.
That kind of came, Indie Premier kind of came in, and it was one of those like, all right, how do we create something that is going to provide a really good environment? So we had a great experience in the Girls Academy.
Right.
You know, obviously over time, teams transitioned into the ECNL in those first couple of years in the Girls Academy. And for us, you know, when the opportunity came up, it was, if we're true to our mission statement of wanting to push the envelope and be the best, that's where we felt like the direction was going. So it was nothing negative against the Girls Academy. It was just, that is, you know, you look at all the statistics, and to be the best, you know, our last year in the Girls Academy, we were in 4 national finals.
Exactly.
You know, so for us, we were at the point, right? And this is, you can look into this in a bunch of different ways if you want, where I, as the director, felt like we weren't able to get our kids out of third gear. You know, so it was, how do we get them, that last 15% of potential maybe wasn't getting unlocked because they were able to be, you know, successful without their max, you know, or maybe the attention to detail on, you know, the tactical stuff and things like that. And so it was, okay, we have to go and really be tested. And, you know, the year before, we actually, in the summer, it was in August, which was toasty, but we went down to Dallas and we played FC Dallas, we played Solar, and we played UFA from Atlanta in preseason. So it was us, like Colorado Rush, who came over as well to the ECNL, did that, you know, and it was phenomenal. And you went, okay, that's the standard. So yes, we are good. How do we become excellent, right? And we'd always played friendlies against everybody around here,
Right.
you know, but friendlies are different from competitive fixtures.
Exactly.
No matter how much you try to make the friendly a competitive fixture, it's never quite the same. Right. So for us, it was, you know, we have to really understand where we are in the landscape, and we learned things. We learned we're not athletic enough. We're not, you know, as technical as we thought we were, because now the pressure is more. So it was all these things. So the first year, we were successful in the first year, but it was an adaptation period, you know, and in the second year, we've really grown into it. We had a phenomenal tryout the last couple of weeks, you know, of players looking to come in and be a part of it. So I think our teams are going to elevate even more. We retained everybody.
Yeah.
You know, even the players that moved from ECNL to Regional League, they are staying, right? And we had people come from other clubs' top groups for our Regional League programs, and I think people are kind of seeing like we've been who we say we are, right? And that's quite rare in the youth landscape. You know, so for us, we're going to unapologetically be ourselves, and we know that means we're not for everybody, and that we're okay with that.
Right.
So this is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to develop you. And then I think the biggest piece is, here's our receipts and results. And a lot of people can't provide those. Everyone can claim, you know, to be this or to be that, but it's, here's our list of players that are going Power 4. Here's our kids that have gone pro. Here's our kids that are in the national team now and in the past. And they're there, so the pathway's there. And that's again, going back to your point about Detroit and Michigan, and part of the appeal of it is, we're not the only ones in town. There are 5 GA and ECNL clubs here. So I love competition personally. I think it would be fun if all the clubs got one field and we were all next to each other and we could train next to each other, and you could go, I like that, I don't like that, I like that. I just love it, because here's the thing. If I don't do a good job, my players are going to go elsewhere. If they don't do a good job, their players are going to come here.
Yeah.
So you have that permanent battle of it keeps everybody on their toes all the time.
Right.
And if you slip, it's going to hurt. But if you do a good job, you're going to keep rising, right? And so you get rewarded for the work, which just makes soccer better.
Yeah.
You know, which is awesome. And the cool thing about Metro Detroit is everyone will play everybody. Like that's the, you know, so that's the, we play Tiger, we go to their preseason event, we play Jags, we're playing Jags in April again, we play Hawks, even though we're in the same league, we're like, hey, these games are so good,
right?
Let's play again. You know, so we do all those things, and it makes soccer better. And that's the, you know, there's so much fear of playing friendlies against each other, and that's, I always chuckle because you talk to people on the West Coast and things like that, and it's, why wouldn't you play? If we're at the point where I'm afraid of losing players because we lose a friendly, there's way more wrong than you think. So you need to be confident in who you are and the products you have, and go compete.
And the relationships you're building with your players, like you just talked about.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and so many coaches take it personally when they do leave. Mm-hmm. It's like,
I think it's like, and that's the tough part, because everybody has an ego, right? So it's okay. How do you, if we are true to what we say, which I think for the most part every coach at least says it, of you're there for the best interests of the players, right? And I think that's the tough part of, a coach should be proud if they've developed a player to a point where they're going somewhere where it's a level up, right? Now, if you have a player that leaves because they're just upset at a decision you made, that's different, right? But it's, if you're able to develop a player who moves from, let's say, US Youth to Regional League, and then Regional League, you've developed them, and they're now able to get onto an ECNL team. That should be something that you take a point of pride, and you can be like, I can help develop you, you know, and things like that. I think a lot of people get very like this, you know, and I want to say it's going away a bit, but it's still always there, right? So that's the piece of, you know, you get a lot of personal egos get tied up a little bit too much, and at the end of the day, you know, that's I chuckle because I have this conversation with Doug and Michelle at Hawks all the time. Is if somebody doesn't want to be here, don't be here, and that's okay. Because here's the thing: if I have to beg you to stay, it's just going to be miserable for both of us because you're one foot out the door, right? So if you want to go somewhere else, go somewhere else. It's okay.
Is it the same with coaches? I feel like because G has been here forever, you know, Tino's been here forever. Obviously, all the Steinwashers, you know, like I feel like coaches don't move as much unless there's some type of merger, you know, unless it's like Rush with Jags or something like that. Yeah,
there's a natural shift, right? Yeah.
But other than that, I feel like everybody's pretty loyal, and the Liverpool guys have always been the Liverpool guys, and you know what I mean? You
don't see much bouncing, and it's an interesting thing, because if you look at like the Dallas market, coaches leave every year, and then they take their whole team and they go from this club to this club, and then they go again another year, and it's the Wild West, and that's
I've been
This episode is brought to you by Grips Soccer Socks. Guys, stop spending $55 on a pair of socks when there are other options available. Grips Soccer was founded by a father and son who were sick of paying $55 for socks. Go to gripsoccer.com and use promo code IHateSoccer for 15% off. That's gripsoccer.com. Promo code IHateSoccer. This episode is brought to you by Salt Athletic. A couple weeks ago, I'm training one of my college players. She plays at Kentucky. I noticed that she has one of these salt bags. I see them on social media all the time, and I was wondering, I was like, okay, does this thing really work? Well, she opened up her bag and pulled her cleats out, and it was the worst smelling pair of cleats maybe that I've ever smelled. While they were in the bag, I didn't smell anything. And it was amazing that it could trap in all of the smell so that her bag doesn't stink, that her car doesn't stink. I could not vouch for this product more. As a goalkeeper, I wish I had this 20 years ago for my gloves, and they do have a glove bag. Go to the link in the description for 10% off and get rid of all the smell, guys.
Mentoring? I don't know if mentoring is the right word. Somebody that coaches at Solar.
Okay.
It is wild down there.
Absolutely.
It's like they have 10 teams per age group, and there's no hierarchy.
No.
You have the top 2 teams, and then there's everybody else, and everybody's like poaching from within their own club.
Yep.
It's like, what in the world is going down?
And it's always about like I think it's always how things are presented as well. Because like we've got a bunch of areas, right? And they all have good players in them, right? And obviously we try to congregate the talent as much as we can at U13, but sometimes it doesn't make sense, or our player's not ready, or they don't need to come till high school. And so it's how do you help that kid, right? As opposed to, because we also know sometimes if I go take that player, that team's over, right? Because that's their best kid. Right. So now you look at, okay, so we've had these situations both with players inside our club and then kids that are coming to our club, but they're at, a community club.
Right.
And so it's, okay, let's get on the phone and let's have an adult conversation between, look, this player is going to come, but how do we support you? So it's one of those, you know what? They're still going to play games with you and state cup with you, right? So we can do both. So we have the ability to do that so now we can give that, not only that, but hey, you know what? What about if like a couple of players from our team come and play state cup with you too, right? So now we've given them something back. Right. Their player is coming. It's not going to blow up their team right now. They have time to plan and create, but we still are able to provide. And a lot of these kids who are, in our ECNL programs, they love the chance to go play a little state cup with, their friends in their community.
Yeah, because they don't get to do that anymore.
No, exactly. So it's one of those, like, all right, yeah, you can get, now you had one really good player, now you got three. Now you can go make a run. Now you can go do something cool. Yeah. So I think it's one of those, like, I think the more people are just sometimes willing to get off of email or text message and just pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, we can meet or we can talk on the phone. We both want what's best for this kid. I understand your situation. Hopefully you understand ours. How do we make it work?
Right.
Right. And then you go, okay, now there's a pathway where they don't feel like all you want from them is their best kid. It's, hey, I'm helping you in return.
Yeah.
So how do we work together? But doesn't happen nearly as much as it should, because again, people get tied up in their worlds and they forget how it impacts so many different levels.
Right. How many locations does Nationals have right now? Do you know?
I want to say it's 8. So we've got a lot, obviously, in they go Lansing over all the way up to, we actually have one in Sault Ste. Marie. So all the way up there. So it's kind of cool, and they have some studs.
So what do you do for those types of players?
Yeah, so the example is they have 2 kids that play with our 2013 ECNL group right now. So, and the credit to those parents, because that's a drive and that's a commitment. They come to games, right? They're able to do things. You always have to find this delicate balance, especially when they're younger. But like we actually have, we have not quite a few anymore. We have several kids still who come from Grand Rapids. I had a girl this year who actually played for me at Cup at the beginning of her career. It's kind of a cool story.
Yeah.
Reese Brown, who went early to Ohio State, she came up and played this year because she's like, I want to get ready for college. But what we require for all of those kids in the high school ages is you're here 2 days a week. You have to be able to commit to that. And if you can do it, then you can be part of it. If you can't, then it's not, how do I look my parents in the eyes and go, this kid who has never trained a minute is getting all the minutes.
Exactly. I'm getting a lot of DMs about guest players, but then I'm also getting some messages from rural parents of like, what do I do for my kid who's a high-level kid that is 4 hours away from...
And I think it's you have to find those scenarios and those situations of every club is willing to do something a little bit different. Because the trouble as well is, as you get older, if you're missing the training component, it's not like 11, 12, 13, maybe 14 where you can step in and just play because you're a good player.
Yeah.
Right? You have to tactically understand how the team trains. You got to build those kind of relationships with the players, with the coaches. It's one of those, if we're going into the playoffs and we've been training tactically for 2 or 3 weeks and you haven't been here,
right,
how can I as a coach ask you to perform these things that I'm basically telling you on a clipboard on the sideline?
Right.
It's not possible, right? So I think there is that component of if you're really trying to do it the right way. And look, there's different models and there's different clubs. There's clubs in GA and the ECNL that basically have 7 or 8 of their own players, and then they have players that don't train and they come in and they play on weekends, and it works for some, it doesn't work for others. But that's what they choose to do. For us, it's you have to be here. And we've actually had players that wanted to come, very high level national team players from out of state, that we said no. And obviously that's very difficult because that kid could help change your team.
Right.
But we have to be true to who we are, and it's tough enough to talk to a parent whose kid is here 4 days a week, and that the kid who's 2 days a week is getting time. It's like, but this kid is doing that, and they're driving 2.5 hours. I mean, Reese was doing 3.5 hours, and that was, her school was flexible and allowed her to do remote classes on a day, and dad had a flexible job. So they would come up Wednesday, they'd train with us, right? They would stay, he'd work remotely. She would do like NLT with Aaron Bird,
Yep.
train with them. Then she'd come to training, then they'd go home, and then they'd come up for the games. So, she was able to be in the environment and get a bonus out of it. And she went to Ohio State this January and is crushing it already. So
When you are in that situation where a kid
Yeah.
is only here twice a week, and do you communicate what's going on to the entire team and the entire group, or do you keep it kind of private and just be like, hey, this is how it's going to be?
we try our best. There's probably not a perfect way because at the oldest ages, which is when this tends to become more relevant, like the parents aren't driving to training anymore. So they're not there to just be like, hey, we're going to have a quick team meeting. It's you're relying on trying to, communicate via the WhatsApp or whatever to try and get the messaging. And, it is when it's written down, sometimes it's ignored or missed or misinterpreted. So we try to communicate it. And we've had this probably for, I would say, 3 years now. We've had players in the program like that. So I think people understand it. They might not like it, right? But they understand it.
Right.
So that's the big thing is, anytime there is a lack of information, it creates room for people to create their own narrative. And that's the, we want to give you the honest answer. And that's what I always tell people is I'm happy to have a conversation. You might not like the answer, but you're going to know why the decision has been made and what the decision is. And that's what we're going to stick with. So, this is a really talented player who is coming into this environment. She is required to be here.
Yeah.
Right. And we look at, for us, if the way we map it out is it's not just pick 2 days. It's you're here Wednesday and Thursday because those are our heavy load tactical days for the most part. Monday, if you have 2 games at the weekend, Monday's a regen day, which typically a lot of times can be at home. Tuesday, they have, technical training. So all of our kids work with next level training. So they do technical training once a week, 48 weeks a year, 90 minutes every week, pure technical. So we do that because stylistically how we want to play is super. And obviously we do technical inside our training, but we do that. Every single kid does it in our top 2 teams.
In the top 2 teams.
ECNL and Regional League, every kid.
So, okay, go into that.
Yeah.
All right. So for the people that are out of state, Aaron Bird, next level training. I just posted a video, just with I think it was with Doug Steiner, and we were just talking about Michigan, you know, and how. And then some parent goes, "Yeah, it's all because of NLT," and it's like, yeah, and I hope to have Aaron on soon.
Yeah.
But can you go into how important that technical training is and how that? I've always DM'd you.
Yeah.
Because you would always post about, how the Nationals have a partnership with Next Level.
Yeah.
And can you go into the importance and how that is?
Yeah, so it was an interesting one. So that was, Bird and I actually had a mutual acquaintance when I moved from Cincinnati. So Malia Berkeley, who played at the Courage and then now is at Houston, her dad, the other daughter, was in our program as well at Cup. And so I knew him and obviously followed Malia's journey because, Todd would share and it's exciting. So she would, she would come up in the summers and she trained with Aaron.
Right.
So it was one of those he was actually one of the first people that reached out to me when I moved to Michigan and just like, welcome, hey, let's go grab a coffee, chat. And just kind of, got to know him and his philosophy and things like that. And it was, okay, we look at our team, we train 4 days a week. A lot of people do 3.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, of this 4, how do we keep it fresh? Because one voice 4 days a week is a lot. Right. So how do we keep it fresh? But throwing things around within our environment. How do we keep it fresh? But how do we keep it consistent? And that's the toughest part. Is you have to find things that align. You can't just do programming to check a box because then you're just checking a box and you actually can put yourself behind. Right. There's a lot of trainers, just like there's a lot of coaches that you watch their videos and you're like, that's not right. That's not game realistic. That doesn't provide, they're receiving on the wrong feed. They're not understanding the IQ thing. So watched a lot of what Aaron did, talked to a lot of people. And we just kind of talked about like, okay, like we as a program at Nationals, we want to really play. And in order to do that, obviously we've talked about play means a lot of things, right? We want our players to understand cues. So we want them to be able to, play in 2v1s and 3v2s. And one of the things we always talk about is always creating +1s to build out. But they also need to have the ability to hit a long ball if they need to.
Yep.
So that is all technical components. I think a lot of people think it's just, a lot of little touches. It's being able to strike a ball. It's being able to turn. It's being able to accelerate into things. And it's knowing body positioning. All these things are what we describe as technique. And so in order to play, that has to be something that we really value because you can't just ask anyone to play.
Right.
You have to have a base set, right? Just like to compete at the top level, you have to have a base level of athleticism, right? That's when you talk about, well, Xavi and people weren't athletic. I was like, have you ever watched them in person? They are freakishly athletic.
Well, if only our best athletes played.
Yeah,
like,
it's
you're
different.
kind of ripping on, like, I mean, Messi's 5'6".
Exactly.
Xavi and Iniesta, they're all small guys. They wouldn't be considered our best athletes if they were American.
But they are very good athletes still.
Exactly.
And that's it. A lot of times you don't pick that up when you're on TV, and it drives it nuts. So it's one of those, like, yeah, you've got to have a base level of athleticism to be successful. It's just it is what it is. You have to have a base level of technique to play how we want to play. So just like you need to have all these things to move on to what we say we are as a program, is we want to have players that can impact, right, the youth, the college, and the international level. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, we have to set the kids up with the tools. And we go, all right, how do we differentiate ourselves? And so it was, you look at so many people come in to train with Aaron, whether it's collegiate, MLS, NWSL, international players. He's got full national team players that come in to train with him. So obviously he's quite good at it, and, of course. It aligns well with us. And he's able to give them a different voice and a different perspective as well, which keeps it fresh. So, we've got, you always look at what's the lifespan of a coach, right, with a team. And so this maybe allows you to go from a 2-year life cycle to a 3-year life cycle with a coach if you need to.
Right.
But it aligns. It's worked. Our teams can really play, and we're able to work closely with Aaron and be like, hey, we need it to be a light load this week because we just had this. We need it to be a heavy load. We need to really focus on, let's talk about, some of the things we're struggling with is just getting faced up to play forward, when we're building, or, our positioning to win second balls and then go forward. And he can then adapt the training sessions to do that as well. So it takes maybe some of the burden off of team sessions so that we can focus on a bigger picture, right? I think every coach in every session still does technical foundation stuff every session, non-negotiable for our blue and our grays, our ECNL and our regional league teams. So it's not like we just go, okay, we're outsourcing technical development.
We're going to focus on tactics.
Exactly.
And you've got all the technical.
We're supplementing it, right? And that's the thing of it's like everything. If you do it every once in a while, it doesn't work. You don't get the benefit.
It has to be consistent. Exactly. It's repetition. It's just part of your culture.
Exactly. And so for us, we want that and players to know that this is part of what you get at nationals. And we started that in 2021, so we're 5 years into this now. So we were the first people that did it because no one did it. It was kind of this. I found it was interesting. A lot of people almost seem afraid of their players working with trainers, like it's
they prevent
insult.
it.
Well, it's one of those, like, why?
Yeah.
Now the right
you
trainer,
have me.
Yeah.
Am I not good enough?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the ego.
No, 100% that we talked about. So it's
and
one
then
of those.
people would ban
it's wild.
Players training with extra coaches and Bird, and it's like he's only trying to make your players just a little bit better.
Yeah, which benefits you.
You're in this together.
Well, that's the big piece. It comes back to, are we really true to what we say we are, which is that we are in this for the best interests of the player? And every time you do something like that, it goes, are you? Are you? And you should be, because it's one of those, like, Aaron makes our players better. So, and he aligns with us philosophy-wise, how he sees the game, how he wants to train players, with intensity, with demands, with expectations. And then we all get to work towards creating a better product. And you look at, I think you never see things like this. People go, well, what's the instant result? That's like, okay. We're now in year 5, right?
It's like microwave.
Exactly.
You can't microwave development.
No. So we're in year 5, and you look at, we consistently have players in the national team. We consistently have players going to Power 4. At the end of the day, though, we also consistently have players going D2, D3, NAIA, whatever, because it's about finding the best fit.
42, what'd you say?
42 players
26
so far, and we probably have 4 or 5 more that will go in before the end of their senior year here that are deciding between their kind of final options from our RL teams.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, if you play with us and you want to play in college, we will get you the platform and the stage, and then you have to perform. But you will have a stage that very little to nobody else can provide you.
Right.
And part of that is, one of the things that we get consistent feedback from colleges is that they like, both from what they can see in the pre-recruitment process, but also once players arrive on campus, is that our players, because of how we choose to play, are able to adapt to any system and any style of play. Yeah. So if they need to be direct, they can do it, right? If they need to play, they can do it. If they understand rotations, they understand the game.
It's just about solving problems and give players the opportunity and the skill set to solve soccer problems in multiple ways.
Absolutely.
And those are the best players.
100%.
Yeah. So that is all included in your club dues, or is it
So
a separate?
we've got club fees and team fees, right? So the club fees cover the costs of fields and coaches and insurance and all the, unfortunately, very, very expensive parts of soccer. And then
Especially the indoor facilities up here.
It is. I remember in Cincinnati there is one 11v11 indoor field, and I remember when I came up, so it's wall to wall in Mason. I think it's been renamed as Let's Play, but it was. I remember at Cup renting that out and thinking $400 an hour was criminal. And then I moved up here, and I said I would have rented every hour of space at $400 an hour.
Exactly, it's $700,
in the winter, it's
$800.
$850 is a quote-unquote decent price now.
Right.
So you look at really...
It's going to get to $1,000.
And you haven't included referees, a trainer, so you're...
And then you're talking 3 or 4 sessions a week.
Yeah.
And they're not hour-long sessions.
Yeah.
So
We've
do
got
the
8
math.
teams on the field, and that's the way it is, because that's just the way it is, and then the team fees encompass your events, NLT, the camera, like the huddle and all that sort of stuff. So
you guys use Huddle?
we do, yeah.
Okay.
So we had a pretty good experience with them. So it's and obviously the ECNL uses Huddle, so the league exchange is inside of Huddle, so it makes it really easy to now just be able to push a button and it's in the league exchange, which is
How
nice
much
and
film
easy.
do you guys do with all of your players?
Yeah, so probably not enough. That's the honest answer. Is I'm not going to sit here and say we do tons.
Right.
Well, that's one thing that is part of our. We really wanted to make a commitment to going into this next cycle because we felt like the age change provided a natural progression point for us. Obviously we've had youth soccer has gone through so many changes for the clubs that have had to go. US Youth, Development Academy, Girls Academy, ECNL. You look at that, that's 4 leagues in like 8 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot, right? So there's consistent change. So, for us, we felt like we'd done really well in the Girls Academy. When we came over, we kept everything kind of as is. These are the kids that have got us here. We want to kind of grow with them. And then obviously we had, year 1 in the ECNL was successful, but we knew in order to then take it to the next step, we needed to do more. So it was okay. This tryout cycle, we've had a lot of players come in, a lot of very good players for next year, which is, it's crazy to talk about in February for next year, but this is the world we're in now. So part of that is, okay, how do we then evolve ourselves and our offerings as well as, I am one of those big believers in I don't just want to do things to check a box. It has to have a meaningful, purposeful impact. So if we're going to do it, how do we really do it? Not just, there's film in your account, go watch it, which sometimes we have to do. So we try to do it where we teach players self-analysis, right, of what am I doing, how am I impacting it, where am I making mistakes, but also opposition analysis of who are the players that I'm most likely matching up with, what are their tendencies, so that now you have a marginal gain going into the next game. So for a lot of, whether it's events, playoffs, things like that, we ramp it up, and we have kind of like a template that we'll send the players, and then each individual will send that back. Sometimes we do things where they'll get together as positional groups and present on, this is what we see, this is how, if we were the coach, we would go after it, that sort of thing. So trying to teach them things so that when they're asked to do that at the next level, they have the ability to answer it and not freeze. And it's, again, the higher the level, the margins are less and less. So you have to look for these incremental little moments of, if I know that their center back has an awful right foot but a magic left foot, but I just keep running at her and letting her put it on her good foot,
right,
she's going to torch me. So just now, I'm going to press everything onto her wrong foot.
Right.
And if you know that at minute 1 instead of minute 15,
exactly,
you've maybe created a goal, right? So it's one of those things of, and that's the, you look at the scores when you get into the playoffs at the top level, it's 1-0, 2-1, 2-0 games, right? So that could be the game.
Yeah. What is your club structure in terms of, do you guys have a video coordinator? Do you guys have a college coordinator or who?
Yeah, so the college stuff I lead for our ECNL and our regional league groups, and that's part of kind of overseeing the program for me is I'm able to be I go to pretty much every event that the ECNL and the regional league are in. I try to make it to as many league games as I humanly can for their regional league, as well as obviously my coaching obligation, so that I can, because I think there's, if you have a coordinator that's not actually coaching as well, sometimes they're working off of a coach's recommendation instead of their eyeballs, right? So you go, okay, let's say John is the coaching or the college coach coordinator, right? And his job is recruiting. He can provide a lot of good stuff, but if he's not actually in the environment at events, seeing Susie play against Slammers and against Hawks and against Solar, how do you know what she actually is to be able to recommend her to the next piece?
Of course.
Because film, you can do certain things, right? But being there in person provides you the real perspective.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big piece of it. Allows me to go, yep, she's good in this environment. The struggles are here. We think she could get to here,
Right.
She's maybe a late developing power forward. She is a power forward. She's a national team. She's a mid-major. She needs, we've had kids that have gone on to, that have gone to JUCO, being player of the year, and are now Division One. Faith Weber, obviously,
Yep.
is playing in the NWSL now. Was one of those. Went to Delta for 2 years, won a national championship. Bella Workman is the girl was just there, was player of the year. Her both years won a national championship. Going to Central Michigan now. So I think it's one of those. I think the person in charge of the college recruiting has to be intimately tied into the game and how the players are playing and training, because how do you answer questions if you don't know?
Right, and college coaches would say the exact same thing. Is the most successful or the best way to find players is in person, watching them in games and with their own club environment. Seeing them in person at an ID camp is not doing the player justice.
Yep.
Right, and
that's one
not
thing
just
we do a lot of,
highlight
is
tape.
bringing college coaches in to watch training.
Right.
So we've had a lot of people, and they come in and they get a perspective of, because the player's a lot more relaxed, right? They always have attention because they know the college coach is there.
Right.
But you get to see their personality, and get to see who they really are and what's their mentality to training. What are they like when their players are screwing around? What are they like when it's super intense? So
I would love to know who was the first club, who was the first college coach that did that.
yeah,
Because now it's almost common practice.
Absolutely.
You see the Tigers bringing in coaches. You see Jags doing it. You see Liverpool doing it. Obviously, you guys do it. The Flash have done it in the past. So I would love to know
who's the first one?
who was the first one, because it's brilliant.
Yeah,
I don't think clubs do enough of it.
absolutely.
I don't know if college coaches do enough of it. But it's just another avenue of getting your kids seen. And that's a big selling point, I'm sure, to your parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's our promise is always that we will set the stage for you. You have to perform, though. And that's at the end of the day, you're not going to, especially in the world now where there's 28 players on a roster, you're not just going to make it off of, a hope or a dream or partial work. You have to go be some of the best to go play, especially at the Power 4 level.
Right.
You've got to be incredible. And your work ethic has to match your commitment, your desire, all these things. And that's a different level of player.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's, a lot of people think that a lot of college recruiting is down to just, David recommended me, so I'm going to get to go there. No, you have to be good enough. And now it can help, right? That we can talk about your mentality. We can talk about who you are as a person. We can talk about the fact that you're a junkie, and sometimes we have to pull you off the field.
Right.
But I can't change who you are as a player. And that's we can help you get better, but everybody knows your proof is in your product, ultimately.
Right. And the player has to do a lot of the work themselves, because I think, was it Demir? I don't know. This is years ago. And I think it was Demir. He would say stuff like, I can't go to bat for you if you don't show up.
Absolutely.
Air quotes. You know what I mean? If a coach goes to bat for a player and that player underperforms, doesn't put in the effort,
I'm not going to believe you next time.
I'm not going to believe in you, and I'm not going to sell you, and that college coach might never talk to me again if I screw him over because I went to bat for you, and then you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that happen?
Yeah, no, I mean, you are as good as your word, right? And that's the big piece of, we have to, and we tell families this, is I will always go to bat for your daughter, but I will always be honest as well. And that's the big piece of, if you are a lower end D1 person, right, I'm not going to go and try and sell you to Michigan or Michigan State or anything like that, because they then don't trust our word, and that's not fair. And you're not going to get there anyway, right? So let's look at let's say you did, your experience is going to be miserable. You're never going to be on the field, right? You maybe break down training, right? So why not let's find you a place where you can excel, right? Where you can be great and where you're wanted. Right, so that's the big piece, I think, is people have to understand as well that when we speak to college coaches, and you build these reputations over years, right? But if you keep going, no, trust me, she's really good, and then they're like, I've watched her 5 times now. They're like, I'm not seeing it, she's not at the level, and you keep going, Now they go, well, what's your motive? Why are you doing this? You know, like I've said no, basically.
Yeah.
You know, we keep pushing this player. So it has to be like, we have to be honest and transparent. And that way the college coaches have the ability to, you know, if a kid really does have a bad day, I can say it's just a bad day, come back tomorrow. And then come back tomorrow and she crushes it, great. Or vice versa. Like I have to be able to tell a college coach, she just had the best day of her life.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that is quite where she is. That shows you the potential where she can get to, but you have to come and watch her over time to see if she's the right fit for your program.
Right. How about like coaching education and everything within the staff of the entire nationals?
Yeah, so we do, like each kind of area does a bit, because each area is different, right? So what maybe is working for the Genesee coach isn't necessarily working for Tri-County, isn't maybe with Lansing, because they're different markets, right? And we have a really lucky, like kind of, I don't know how you describe it. We're in a good situation because a lot of the people that are in charge of these different areas are from that community. So they get it and they know the people and they know the communities and the schools and different things, so they're tied in. So a lot of that coaching education wraps around that. Typically we have like a big kind of nationals convention. I think it was, you know, the convention that was, you know, everyone goes to, the United
In
Soccer
Philly,
Coaches one.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it becomes so expensive and so tough, and especially for people to get the time off work if they're not a full-time coach. And
Exactly.
for those that are full-time coaches, you got to get cover now for your teams, and
Yeah.
they overlap with events a lot of the times now. So, you know, for us, it was like, okay, how could we create something? So typically we've done, it's been 2 days, 3 days, and it's all in-house at, you know, so we've done like I ran field sessions, James DeCosmos run field sessions, Gronthic's run field sessions. We have classroom sessions about, you know, whether it's how to use the technology, whether it is, hey, this is how to set up individual development plans. This is how to, you know, help your players with college recruiting. This is how we can create social media and leverage it for your areas, for your players, all these different types of things. So we typically do that in-house, you know, and then that's something that I think we need to continue to evolve of, you know, especially inside kind of like the ECNL environment and stuff where it's pretty much full-time guys.
Right.
So, you know, can we get stuff where we do, you know, you've seen all the different things, coffee with coaches or whatever, and it's like, let's set a topic and every 2 weeks we just get together and we talk about it.
Right.
You know, or what's your struggles right now? And, you know, so a lot of it is organic in terms of touching base with the coaches of like, what's your challenges right now? How can I help and support you? What do you need? Mixed with more formal things like the kind of nationals, symposium, convention, whatever you want to call it.
Right. What do you guys do for IDPs?
So that again depends based on the level and based on, you know, the area, right? So a lot of players don't want to do it because they're not of the level where they're like, hey, I'm going to thrive
They're
on.
not that committed.
Yeah,
They're not like looking to
exactly.
play college. They're just looking to make varsity.
And so
or,
now if you're in a program that is kind of aimed at community and fun, they're like, well, this isn't fun. You know, so I don't want to do this anymore. And now you're like, oh no, we've kind of hurt the love of that, as opposed to, you know, who we deal with. And still on our teams, everybody doesn't want to do it. So what we kind of do is we offer it. Next year, we're moving to kind of, in the oldest ages especially, a more like formal approach of basically like 4 meetings a year with it. And it's kind of a fluid document of, you know, how do we take what you want to do and reverse engineer it? Okay, so
Yeah.
I want to play at North Carolina, I want to be on the national team, and I want to play like Trinity Rodman. Awesome. So let's reverse engineer it. Okay, so now we've got what do you bring to the table that can provide things like this? You know, what is a stretch for you that you're going to have to work really, really hard to, and lay out kind of the steps. So now inside, so we have to develop you obviously technically, tactically, physically, psychologically. So what is our plan for all of those? Because just showing up at 4 trainings a week, you're not even going to get close. So we got to get film, right? You got to watch the pro game. So we got to pull clips so that you understand it. And that's one big difference as well. Guys will watch it obsessively.
Yep.
Girls, it is painful to get them to do it. And it's getting better, but it's nowhere near where it needs to be. So that's what we always talk to parents about, is whether it's, hey, I think I can be Trinity, or I think I can play at North Carolina. And the first question is, have you watched North Carolina play this year?
Yeah.
Well, no. Well, how can you say you can play there?
Exactly.
You know, so it's one of those, the same thing with recommending a player to college. How can I go, you know, to Jeff at Michigan State and say, I got a player for you,
And you've never watched
and I
Michigan
haven't watched
State.
Michigan State. So that's
Exactly.
like, I make a point of trying to watch, and that's when I get home from training in the fall, every day it's ESPN Plus. And then the next day, you know, while I'm working in my office, I'll have games on so that I can talk to TCU, I can talk to Cal, I can talk to Texas, because stylistically I know how they play and who could fit in and who can't. You know, because again, how can I recommend a player just based on, yeah, she's really good for us? but I don't know if she's going to be good for you. Like, that's not realistic. And that doesn't do the player or the college a service.
Right.
So, it's the same thing with players. So going back to the individual development plan is, all right, they have to understand that, okay, we have our team training. So inside of that, you can develop individual components, right? So it's working on, hey, with you, right? So you want to be Trinity. So you have to float into half spaces more. You have to get the ball on your front foot, and you got to be willing to run at people. And when you fail, you got to be willing to do it again.
Yep.
So now inside of so we're playing in a traveling transition rondo. So we'll make sure there's a rule in there that it doesn't have to travel via pass, it can travel via dribble. You need to make sure that you're the player that's available every time, right? To get into that space. You're not going to get it every time, but you can get it and you can break the line that way. So now we can help you start to visualize it inside training, and then we can look at game and go, okay, did you do it?
Yeah.
No, why not? Okay. Weren't in the right positioning, or your body shape was wrong, so you can never really get faced up and go forward. So all these different pieces, that I think that's what it needs to look like, because I think there's so many people that create documents and then it's just a Google Doc and like sort of look at it sometimes. Basically, for if there's a complaint, I got to look and see what we told them, as opposed to how do we create something that's not checking a box? How do we create something that's making an actionable difference for this player?
Right.
And so that's why there's always been, like, not always, but I've had hesitation and just like, this is how we do it. This is what we're doing. I think I've played with IDPs now for 10 years of like, what does FC Dallas do? What do these people do? And that was one really good thing about the old Academy Director course. So I took that. There were 2 female groups. So, and then obviously it went away because of COVID and the Development Academy went away, but that was a year-long course. And there was 12 of us in it, and it was the best coaching education thing I've ever been through in my entire life, because it really made you take every little bit of building a successful program, and you had to really hone in on, how do we want to do IDPs? How do we want to structure training? How do we want to, this is our philosophy, how do we make sure that we do it, right? And we went and we spent 10 days in Spain with the federation, and we went, we did all these things across the course of that year, and you had to really
ran
present
that?
them. So
Was that Miriam?
Yeah, so Miriam was kind of the lead in that, but it was like Didier Deschamps, Panolo's guys, or Chambaron, not Didier Deschamps, Didier Chambaron did that. I had him for my A license as well. So it was kind of, all those people that were kind of the top U.S. soccer educators were in there, and it was kind of it was an invite only, kind of group, and there was the first group, and then I was in the second group, and then it went away.
Is that when you were with Cup?
That was when I was here.
Oh,
sorry. That was when I was with Cup. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was when I was with Cup. So
Got
that was all of that was happening as kind of the world fell apart as well. So.
Have you done the new stuff, like what's it called? Technical leader or something?
I've seen it. I haven't, because, and that's partly maybe on me of, I went through this, which was such a good experience of, is it going to be repetitive, as opposed to like, all right, the things I took from this, how do I hone in now of, I feel like I've got a really good kind of general sense of knowledge of how do we hone in on what makes us excellent, right? Because one of the things I really liked about that course was they went from, this constant feeling inside the US of like, all right, well, this is what Spain does, or this is what England does, or this is what Argentina or Japan or whatever. And the real thing in that was, how do we develop a US way, and then how do you develop a nationals way, right? And so, for me, it was like, that's what we really want is, in our market, for our players, how do we develop the best thing? Because the same thing of, if what I talked to Nick at PDA and what he's doing, there's some pieces that I can take and I can adapt, just like he can take some pieces from us, but it's not the same market, same players, and same thing. So we have to really create what works here, and how do we help our players get to their very best. And that's with, and our coaches as well. Part of that is I try to really take everything off the plate of the coaches so they can just coach as the director. So they don't deal with travel, they don't deal with schedules, they don't deal with hotels. I take all of that on so that they can just coach. And so it's a big...
You do all that for...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we like all the team fees I collect, and I pay for all the events. I make sure we're registered. I make sure, Jen, our area club manager, helps with all the registration. But our coaches just coach. So I take care of the schedules, the reschedules, the referees, the trainers, payments, reimbursements. I book everything except rental cars, because you can't do that. I learned you gotta have a license. So we so that they can literally just show up and focus on coaching. We take care of everything for them.
When you guys go to events, do you guys just like Airbnb it?
Yeah, we found, so it depends. If there's just like 2 of us going, we'll basically we always try the thing that is the cheapest for the families. So we'll go and we'll stay in a hotel. But if there's 3, 4, 5 of us at an event, the Airbnb is so much more inexpensive. And we have the ability to do laundry, because you're on the field for 12 hours a day. It just kind of gives you a space where everyone can go back and have their kind of bedroom and decompress for a minute. And Jeremy brings his guitar, and it's a good time. So, we're able to kind of relax and enjoy ourselves a little bit as well. So, because that's a lot of stress. It's a lot of work, and you need a little decompression as well. So.
What does the ECNL do for you guys for like coaching education and everything?
Yeah, so they actually, it's quite impressive, and that's one thing that I think differentiates themselves. So they have the symposium every year.
Yep.
Right, which
the
is
Vegas one
which is they bring in phenomenal people that you can learn a lot from.
Right.
Really, kind of across.
Did you go to that?
I did.
Okay.
In the last 2 years. So, and one of the things they do is they have the like ECNL Health and Wellness. They've put a ton of money into that. And they've done so many research studies on like sleep factors, injury factors. So like ECNL, for example, they play 3 games in 3 days, right? A lot of people have a rest day, right? So you'll play 3 and 4. And so there's always the cost argument of, is it just about saving money for families? Is it the right thing for the players? So they did tons of studies that did everything from what's the impact of the temperature, like the climate, what is the impact of 3 games in 3 days? What is the impact on, like increased concussions or ACLs or injuries? Just everything that you can imagine as a data point, they have like 5 years of research on, and they show that there is actually no increase in injury risk playing 3 in 3 days.
Really?
Yeah, and it was interesting because before that they have one of the where you type in your response and it shows up on the board, and everybody was like, for sure. And they went, no, here's actually the research. And playing at this time of the day actually reduces the risk. Heat actually reduces the risk because your body is not as tense.
It's warmed up.
Yeah. So it was quite interesting, all of that stuff. So they do that. And one of the cool things that ECNL does is, in order to get carded in the ECNL, so ECNL, Regional League, everything, you have to go through, it's 5 hours of coaching education per year, and it's online through the coach's voice.
Okay.
And it's actually, it's not one of these just like you can't just click through it. You have to pay attention. I mean, it asks you tactical questions, and it's really good. And some of it is, there are certain mandatory things like the sleep studies and stuff like that, where it's them presenting about, hey, this is really beneficial to your players, and we need you to be educated on it so you can educate your players about the importance of this, why it's important, and then real strategies to help them. And then some of it is, you can choose, hey, you know what, for this hour, there's 5 different things you can choose from. And it might be Chelsea's Academy working on switching the point. It might be, skill development with Tottenham's U6s. So you can kind of adapt to your zone. And then now, I don't know if you saw just recently, they announced at the symposium, they're starting all these kind of ECNL specialty licenses with the coach's voice.
Okay.
So they do coaching education trips that go, to various places in Europe and things like that. But they're also doing these kind of online things now as well, can really kind of hone in on special topics and get kind of special topics diplomas, for those that are motivated. So that is one thing that I really like, is that they are really vested in trying to raise the bar of coaches that are carded inside the ECNL.
So I went to MLS Next Fest, and I've always heard, like, I've never been to any event as a college coach.
Okay.
But I've always heard that ECNL treats their college coaches so much better than the former DA and MLS Next, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you know anything like what they offer or anything like that?
I think a lot of it is coffee. Right, and then a lot of it, it's the so they do that. I know that they have, like pretty good food actually. Occasionally, they'll say, "Hey, club coaches, you can come in," and there's like snacks throughout the day. So I think it's just in a convenient location. They make sure that they're taken care of. They know that they're valued.
Okay.
And then they have chairs for all of them.
Because I've always heard that. I've always,
I hear it all the time. That was like I said, I've been a director in what feels like every female league now. So I hear that a lot. Is, well, I don't like being here because they run out of this or that or food or whatever. And it's interesting, but that's the that's the reason why people are there, is to be exposed to the college coaches. So you got to take care of them, right? And that's something that they do a good job of, and I think college coaches are quite appreciative of that. So, and I think as well, the communication from ECNL is unlike anything I've seen before. And what I mean by that is, they obviously have a lot of full-time employees. So within, if I have a question about whether it's a registration or a player transfer or whatever it is, I'll get a response super quickly. So we'll get that, whereas sometimes it took days in leagues we were in before. and you were made to kind of feel a little bit bad that you had a question as opposed to, hey, here's a resource.
Right.
But at events, right, and that's, especially in the last 2 years, I feel like there's been just some crazy weather that has occurred in random places that it shouldn't.
Kansas City, and
yeah.
St. Louis,
Exactly.
and
Texas.
Yeah.
But their communication is really quick, it's on point, it's decisive, and it's with a plan. It's the night before, hey, these conditions, or you know what, when we were in St. Louis 2 years ago, that like suddenly this freezing rain came in the morning, but it was impacting the field to the point that it was dangerous, and they just shut it down. Today is done.
Right.
And then, or hey, you know what, it's not ideal, we're shifting everything to 50-minute games, which nobody wants. But here's the thing: is there's so many times when you are sitting there. I remember being at playoffs 3 years ago in New Jersey, and we sat in the car for 8-9 hours a day because there would just be pop-up thunderstorms, and it's like, oh, can we go to the hotel? Can we?
Yeah.
And we didn't have like anything, and that's not anybody's necessarily fault.
Of course.
But the ECNL is just really organized with this, and they have everything set up, and they have plans, and they have Plan B and Plan C, and they communicate it well. Which is, I think, obviously they do that to the college coaches, so they get the new schedule instantly. And with the ECNL app, it's so easy.
Do you think it's doable to have ECNL and ECNL RL events at the same time at the same location, rather than RL only, NL only?
Certain ones they do, because that's one thing as well. A lot of leagues do the events. It's like all the high school ages are together, right? So 15s through 19s.
Yeah.
The ECNL has a lot of where they split it. So this is a U19 and U17 event. This is a U17, 16, 15 event. So they do different ages like that. So there are the one where it's split, but it's actually really good. Like, so ECNL Florida in January. Like the RL is in Sanford, the ECNL is in Liquid Ranch, in the kind of the Bradenton area, but they overlap. So we had like our RL groups, I think it was, so that was the oldest two ages were there, and we had 110 schools on the first day between the two groups. And then, obviously a lot of those coaches come over after they're done with that event, and they come over, they do 1 or 2 days there, sometimes 3, and then they come over and the ECNL event goes after that. So there's an overlap. So it makes it for colleges. They're like, okay, we're going to go to Florida and we're going to be there for 4 days, 5 days, but we have games every day. There's no rest day. And everything's kind of managed. The ECNL does a good job of that. Of, let's say you're at mid-major, right, and you're recruiting mainly seniors and maybe juniors. It's not where a lot of people do. All the junior senior teams play in the 8 a.m. time slot.
Yeah.
And you're like having to go all over the place, as opposed to they're staggered throughout the day.
Right.
So now you can maximize your visibility. They do have some events. So like Kansas City, for example, the weather was tragic, but they were at the same time. And the facilities were pretty close. The tough part is always the facility, right? Of just the volume of fields. People
There's only like 2 in the entire country that could handle that.
Exactly. So like,
unless you have an 11-day event like Fest.
Exactly. Fest was like 18 days or something, and it was just everybody coming in and doing it. So like they had ECNL Florida that we were just at. So they had the RL Leaders Cup. They had an ECNL showcase and an RL showcase. So there were technically 3 showcases inside of one at Lakewood Ranch, all smaller scale, but it was all there. So the Leaders Cup was on the kind of these fields, ECNL was on here, Regional League was on here. Mm-hmm. So everyone could kind of, map out as they do. So I think they try to do it because their events are smaller from a numbers wise to allow the right ones to all come in together. So I think it's always the age-old challenge of how do you best maximize the kids? How do you help the college coaches get the maximum for their buck as well?
Yeah.
And the good news is as well, like, it's not just talk. Like our regional league teams participated in ECNL showcases this year. So if you're a high-performing RL club, right, you get opportunities to come into full ECNL showcases as well, which is pretty cool. So that it's not just you're in RL and you're only in RL. That. Yeah. So you'll see a lot when you look at the lists. You'll see club name RL as well. So that's their RL team getting an opportunity, and they do that. I think every event that I've seen, except for ECNL Florida in January, because obviously that's so everybody wants to play in that one, right? Because it's the incredible time of the year, right after the dead period. But yeah, you'll get like our RL teams were in Kansas City, and played in the actual full ECNL event there. Yeah. And obviously that provides them a test of where are you, right? And more exposure there. So,
I didn't know that they did that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
What I liked about Fest was that. Okay, they have academy, they have homegrown, and then they have the pro player pathway, which is the MLS academies, right? And the Saturday that I was there, it was all 19s. Every single field was just the 19s, and all three platforms were there playing at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And I was always just wondering if the ECNL has ever tried to do that, where everybody's at one, because it was at the place in Arizona, which is immaculate. It's huge
Reach
place.
11 or
It was Mesa.
Mesa. Yeah. Oh, yes, that went away for a little bit, came back.
Yeah,
all that,
because of the whole
the bankruptcy
scandal.
and everything. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like 24 fields, and when you walked on the field, you knew that every single player today was 19.
Yeah.
Or every single player the next day was 17, and it's all the same. And I was wondering if ECNL could ever do that, where RL, ECNL, and it's all one age group.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's. I'm trying to think of, as a college coach, do I want to walk out there and it's all just U17s, or do I want the environment to be 19s here, 17s here, and maybe 16s behind me?
It probably depends where you are, right? Because if you're a power four, you need to see sophomores.
Yep.
But you need to see juniors, right? If you're maybe a mid-major or a D2 or a high academic
You
D3, you want to see
juniors,
juniors, seniors.
seniors.
And it's one of those, if you go, okay, for my college budget, if I'm anything outside of power four, I have to maximize it. So it's one of those, if I know I can only really afford, let's say I can afford to come to an event like Fested, I might actually only be able to stay for one day, right? To see that, because I'm going to have a day off and then maybe I get another day.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, it's like I like the idea. I think is it executable in
Doable?
reality? Yeah, to help college coaches.
Because the ECNL is way bigger than MLS Next, I think.
Is it? I don't think so with all the tiers now. I think
Is
that's
it?
the.
Okay.
It's actually like, Girls Academy is actually bigger than the ECNL now with all the clubs that they've added.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's by 3 or 4 clubs now. I think so. Yeah, it's so the ECNL's actually they promoted 3 clubs today, I believe, from the RL.
What do you think of what they're doing in Michigan with the ECNL, with the, what is it
The GMA?
called? Is that what it is?
Greater Michigan Alliance?
Yeah. With like the 9
I think it's
ECNL.
awesome
Okay.
because what it does is it takes, so they're considered just like everybody else a regional league conference. So
Yeah.
you win that or you finish top 2 in that conference, you go to playoffs, right? So our union groups, so Henry Steinwasser runs those groups.
Yeah.
They participate in that, and so you get access to ECNL showcase or ECNL regional league showcases. You go to the playoffs, but here's the thing: is you don't now need to travel to Illinois to play a game. Everything's in Michigan, and you look at which is what they kind of tried to tier National League and stuff into, was kind of like there's so much talent in Michigan that you go, if you're in this platform now, let's localize it. Stop driving past each other to go play an inferior game when you can drive 30 minutes and have an awesome game.
I was just on the phone with one of my buddies that coaches in Buffalo, and he's like, all 3 of the clubs here in Buffalo that all play in a different tier, all left. And they could have just played each other.
Yeah.
But they are all in different parts of the country.
Then they'll go to an event and play each other. Right.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is everyone, for so long it was almost people trying to retain this air of exclusivity and, we're too good. And it's like now I think the majority of people I feel like are like, hey, you know what? There are too many good, especially in Detroit, there's so many good games. I mean, we could not leave Detroit and we could play Hawks and Liverpool and Tigers and Jags. You're still going to have good games with a lot of the RL clubs out there.
You could get 10 good games without ever leaving Michigan.
Exactly.
12 good games.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of those, obviously the National League inside of the ECNL, it's like when we leave, we go play Scott Gallagher and we play MTA and we play Eclipse and you play, like our conference is a gauntlet. So I think when you go to play those, Sporting Blue Valley, KC Athletics, like you go to play those games and people are like, okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But if you're going to play, a team that you're going to go win 7-8 nothing, it's like that's not good for anybody.
We'll start to wrap this up, but can you go into what you, Liverpool, and Hawks just agreed to with the tryouts and the what did you call it?
The Talent ID days?
The Talent ID days.
Yeah.
And why are you having tryouts in March or February?
Yeah, so the high school season for the Midwest Conference ends basically February 1.
Yep.
Is when it's technically considered closed, even though there are some games that go on beyond that. So It was as of February 1, you could host tryouts for the high school ages. And each conference has a different tryout date. So, that's kind of dictated by ECNL. Like you can't host tryouts before this. You're not looking to basically go and pillage other teams or anything like that. And they want to get their conference schedule done. Now, obviously with the kind of changes with the birth year and everything, it was technically the U13 through U18s next year were eligible to have tryouts in February. And it was, when you just look at it and you go, that's insanity, because U13s, U14s, U15s, so they're currently a year younger, they have a whole spring season. How are we going to go tell a kid they didn't make this team anymore, or you're transferring clubs and you still have to finish out a season? Like that's a spot that from a human level, people shouldn't be in. So it was, myself, Granthik, Jeremy, Doug, Michelle, Demir, Jen, all just kind of got on Zooms together and we're like, let's come up with something. Basically we're not saying we're not going to take each other's players. If your kid calls me, I'm going to talk to them, but we're going to agree that everyone from inside the ECNL, so our 3 clubs, can't go to each other's ID sessions until, we said February 1. We're all going to host tryouts basically the same kind of week. You can do it whenever you want within that week, but now it's not, hey, I have a leg up on you because of this, or I can pressure kids. No, let's actually do what we say we do, which is do the things that are in the best interest of the players. And I think a lot of people think Nationals, Hawks, there's this big thing, and it's like, yeah, we'll go to war on game day, but we really do want the best thing for players. And so, if a kid wants to be there, great. If a kid wants to be here, great. So it was, okay, we're going to agree on that. We're only going to do the 3 oldest ages, because the U15s are tricky, because you have kids that are current U15s that are going to drop into next year's U15s.
Right.
With kids that are currently 8th graders rising, but you're not going to have their tryouts. How do you tell these kids, well, you have a team, but we can't really make it yet. Trust us. They need to see it, right? So it's one of those, you go, okay, so those are the 3 oldest ages. We recognize that the 3 youngest ages have a whole season left, right? But we also recognize that we have to do tryouts. So February, March, no ID sessions. If you do ID sessions, they can't be open to anyone that's in an ECNL platform. So ECNL or Regional League. So if a US Youth or a Girls Academy player comes out, that's okay.
But not each other's ECNL players.
Or Regional League players. So they are kind of off limits for that.
Okay.
Then, April 1st, you can start to host open dates that everyone can go to. If inside those talent ID days, a player comes and we're like, hey, we're really interested in them, we'd like you to come out to training. Now there has to be some communication between the clubs so that it's upfront, it's honest. And then everybody is doing tryouts for the 3 youngest ages the week of May 18th. So it is all above board. Everyone's on the same page. You know when tryouts are. There's no one that's trying to create an advantage for themselves or put at a disadvantage because of one club doing one thing over the other. It's everyone's on the same foot. And then obviously now all you have to really focus on is putting your best foot forward as a club and showcasing who you are and trying to attract the players that fit that.
Okay, so what ages just finished tryouts?
So we actually have one more night tomorrow.
Okay.
But this is the next year's under 18s, under 17s, and under 16s.
And they still have the rest of the season.
So depending on the programming, so like Liverpool's kids will go to high school, which their tryouts are next week. Our regional league teams all play high school, so they'll go to high school.
Okay.
Same with Hawks. But our top teams still have programming, and then so do Hawks' top teams. So it's kind of a mix, if you will, but everyone that has a full spring league schedule has not had tryouts, so that they can focus on that.
So then they stay together.
Correct.
And then they'll go to playoffs or nationals
as their teams.
As their teams still.
Correct. So you'll have your traditional tryouts in May, which are earlier than they used to be in June and things like that. But that way at least they can get through the season. And now you don't have clubs sitting in a situation where they're like, hey, we have a must-win game at the beginning of May, but half our team's gone or changing teams, and I don't want to travel. And now I can't field a team, and now it's just insanity. Why? So the May 18th date is after all of the league games are finished, so that the league schedule is complete, playoff spots are secured, and everybody knows what they're moving into. And a player doesn't feel like they need to, hey, if I go to this new team now, I can go help them make playoffs.
Right.
At the expense of my team. No, it's the season's done, so what's qualified is qualified. And then, you finish out your season with your program. If you're choosing to go somewhere else, then you start that at the beginning of the next cycle. But you finish where you are.
Got it.
So it just makes it cleaner and simpler. And then the cool part was that because, obviously a lot of the leadership from our clubs is involved in the GMA. That has all trickled down as well. So it is just, if you are in the ECNL platform in Michigan, this is what you do, right? And so they all did the same thing. So oldest 3 had tryouts. Youngest 3 will come up in May and April and May ID sessions. So whether you're in the GMA, RL, the Heartland RL, or the Midwest ECNL conference, everyone's on the same page and executing it the same way.
Do you think ECNL is going to do the GMA type stuff in every state? Do you think that's their long-term goal, or?
I think if it's right and if it fits, I think it's
got to be a state like Michigan that has enough clubs.
The levels, yeah. Texas has it. So there's a few other states, and I know that they're growing. They're growing the pre-ECNL as well, at that kind of 11 and 12 ages, to keep it very regionalized,
right?
But expose you to things, right? So you have the ability to play against really good competition, see what the events are kind of like a little bit by having one of them, and they're doing like a kind of, if you will, pseudo national championship of hey, for your event that you go to for RL, if you win your event, you can qualify for the summer event where all the leaders come together. So it gives them something to go chase and win if you want to. It's optional though.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of teams that qualified for it, but it's the same time as Michigan Junior State Cup, which, as you know, is the be-all, end-all when you're 11 and 12.
Exactly.
So our teams that qualified weren't able to go, and that was no problem, right? So it's not a you must do this. It's, hey, these are being provided as things that can enhance your experience for your players, enhance your environment. They're there if you want them.
Do you wish State Cup was still a thing?
I love State Cup. That was I love
I
coaching
asked
in it.
that to almost
playing
every
it.
guest.
Yeah, I remember I was lucky enough to win. I think it was 10 in Ohio South, and I loved it. And it was one of those. That was one of the things I knew I would miss as soon as the Development Academy started, and I do. Now, obviously, so many don't play it anymore, but the actual knockout experience, and it was winning your group, and then the quarters, and the semis, and the finals, and the
and then you go to regionals,
stuff.
and then it's just insane.
It's wild, but it was awesome. Yeah. And that was and then you'd go to war in national leagues to see if you could get one of those coveted 2 spots to go straight to nationals, and you could kind of cruise and just focus on development and stuff. So yeah, I definitely miss State Cup. That's for sure. It's you'd love to see a way that it could be a reality again. I don't know if it ever will, but probably not. But yeah, it was a brilliant memory. I still remember a lot of these things, and the overtime game winners, and players' celebrations, and like you said, there is something special about winning something. And that's at the end of the day, we talked at the beginning of the podcast about if we reverse engineer the goals of the national teams, and every pro team, by the way, their goal is to win the championship of whatever they're doing. So that's the stated goal. How you go about it is your individual choice.
Right.
Whether you are direct, whether you're tiki-taka, whether you're Jurgen Klopp's hybrid, that is up to you. But your goal is to win. No one's goal is to just hang out. Your goal is to win, because everybody is ultra competitive. So if we're reverse engineering that, we have to build a mentality of winners, because that, obviously being from Europe, that's one thing that everybody says about Americans is they are so obsessed with winning.
Right.
And it's true. But if we take that away, that's part of our identity. That's part of the U.S. way.
Exactly.
So embrace it and love it. And then it's one of those, you look at those teams with Brian McBride. I remember this when I was in high school. My dad picked me up after school, and it was USA Mexico.
Yep, 2002.
And we drove up, and I was in my dress school shoes still, because I forgot my shoes because I was a teenage boy. And we went up, and he's not, we're going to go buy a pair of shoes. No, you're going to wear those. This is what you're going to wear. So we went up, and that was Brian McBride's eye was so puffed up from the elbow, and he got a cut. And he went back on and scored the header. It was him and Josh Wolf up top together.
Yeah.
And I just core memory, and that was, he was going to do whatever it took to win. And that stuck with me forever, seeing that live.
And I feel like that's gone now. I think
it's there in pockets, but
in 2006, it's we've arrived as a soccer nation, and we're gonna play.
Yeah.
It's no, we just abandoned our mentality.
The DNA. You can add that onto it, but not at the sacrifice of. And so I think that's the thing. As well, you see it sometimes in training. The kid who goes really hard, and people kind of look at him like, "Hey, chill." And you're like, why? No, you raise yourself to that.
Exactly.
That's what it has to be if we want to be elite.
Yeah.
Elite is defined. Here's the thing. Every team that wins the Champions League is considered elite. Right?
Of course.
No, regardless of how they do it.
Right.
Right. If they sit everyone at the back, they're considered elite. So what is elite? That's your definition is different than mine. That's different than his.
Right.
So if we want to be the best at what we do, you have to win and you have to do it. So we can play inside of how we want to be.
Right.
But it's up to winning is the goal. So then it's up to each individual coach or player how you want to do it inside that.
Right.
But if your goal is not to win, what are we doing?
About like what you just said about being in practice of one player going hard and one player's like, whoa, take it easy.
Yeah.
I used to say that to like my girls when I was back coaching teams. I'd be like, it's okay to be the bitch.
100%. Yeah.
It's okay to be like the
You
bad
need to
guy.
be it more. Yeah.
Like, and I would tell my girls at halftime, like, I want you to be the player that they're all complaining about at halftime.
Yeah.
The other
she
team.
said this to me, and yeah.
Like, I can't believe that number 7. She's ridiculous. And it's like, be that player.
I'll never forget it. It actually brings up one of my favorite things so one of the girls that played for me in Cincinnati, Maddie Prohaska, she's a goalkeeper at Racing Louisville now, played at Auburn.
Okay.
Wonderful human, but she loved PKs, like loved them. Like if there was a PK, she's like, yes, extra energy. And I remember, I think it was the Mead Cup. I remember watching her. So another coach had the team, but she's like, I saw this on TV. She told me. So she went and picked up the ball before the forward could take it. Right, and she spits on her gloves, and she rubs it, and she rubs the ball, and she walks up to the girl and hands it to her. And you see this girl just go, ew, and just like she wouldn't touch, she dropped it and rolled it with her foot, and she missed it. And we were like, yes, this is that, yes, love that, And it was one of those you just don't see it enough. Or hey, on corner kicks, I'm walking on your feet. You're doing all these little, things like that we
Kitty
all
punch.
suffered. Oh,
That's
God.
what I used to do.
Yeah, Charlie horses in my
I would just
pod.
punch.
Yeah. Like I remember because I was quick and I used to get those all the time and I was like, oh. So then you had to learn how to run away from these people and then get behind them. But it was, so little things like that. And then that's what we tell a lot of these kids all the time, because that's the number one complaint with girls all the time is she's yelling at me and this and that. And good. Yeah. Stop reading into tone. Listen to message.
Right.
It's that, because here's the thing. If you go to the sideline of any men's or women's high-end college or pro, and you get down there, it's nasty. It's unforgiving. And it's you don't do something, you are hearing it from 4 or 5 people. So welcome to the world. It's hard.
I think that's the wake-up call a lot of girls have when they go from an ECNL team where they play 90 minutes to Power 4 where they might not play at all their freshman year.
You got 2 minutes. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, hey, we didn't like your 7 minutes.
Exactly.
Like, I didn't even do anything.
Right. Exactly.
Like, you didn't run it.
And that's what we tell the girls as well is like you have to understand when you go in as a freshman. Like here, this is your team. But you go into whatever college it is, you're there to take a senior's job. You think she's going to be like kumbaya with you? No, She wants you to fail. So guess what? Every time you mess up, she's going to remind you about it. And every time, hey, it's not good enough. So that you have to be, 1, able to deal with it, 2, be like, okay, it's game on. Let's go. I'm going to take your job, and know that when you're a sophomore, there's a freshman coming in trying to take your job.
Exactly.
And this is the real world. And if we never expose them to that, we set them up to fail in a way. Because X number will rise automatically because that's innate in their DNA. But a large group in the middle, they need to have experienced it. And that's, as coaches, we have to be okay with a player hating me for a little while because I'm teaching them how to come off the bench. And you know what? You didn't perform at training you're my best player. Like I have taken my best player off the field multiple times. And they know it's rare, but when it happens, it's a message of, you weren't good enough. You didn't do the work. You're one of the top players in this group. You have to perform every time. And you have different expectations than her because your standard is here. And so then, though, they go into college. And the same for the middle player. They have to understand that if they go crush it, they're going to get more. But if they don't, they're going to get less.
Right.
So if you don't set them up for that, then we've failed. This group will always do it themselves because they're intrinsically motivated that way. But this group needs exposure to it, and then they'll be okay. But if we don't provide it, they're going into college with one hand tied behind their back.
Do you think that's why the portal is the way it is because they haven't been exposed to that? And then, their freshman year, they didn't get on the field. They're like, well, I'm not appreciated here, so I'm going over there.
I think there's a lot of those pieces. I think there's 1,000 things that go into the portal, right? Yeah. Unfortunately. And I think part of it is the society of, if I don't get what I want, I'm leaving. As opposed to, I don't know when it changed, but it used to be, there's actually I'm sure you've seen it, the cartoon where it's a parent-teacher conference, and it says like 1995, and it is the teacher on one side, the kid on the other side of the desk, and both parents are behind the teacher going, you're not doing enough, you've got to work harder, it's better. And it says like 2025, and it's the flip, and it's the teachers.
The teacher.
Yeah, and like you're singling out my kid, and you're doing this and that, and that's like everybody wants people to be tough on players and hold them accountable until their kid's held accountable. And it's like, you have to allow that to happen as opposed to, hey, everything's going to be okay. We have to teach them to work hard. We have to teach them to be accountable to everything. And you're not going to like it because it's not fair sometimes. And it is tough. And I have to make gut checks, but that's why I'm the head coach, and I have to choose. And sometimes I choose wrong.
Right.
Sometimes I choose right. But that's also part of it. You have to. Your college coach isn't going to pick right every time, or, it's about who I think is going to perform based on what I've seen and what I know is going to happen. So, I think we're in this weird zone where I think it's starting to swing back a bit. I hope I'm not wrong in that statement of people learning to, at least with the younger players that we have, all right, I didn't get what I wanted, so I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to grind. I'm going to work, as opposed to, that's it. I'm going to pack my bags and go to the club next door. Because when you set that mentality, now that's what happens in college. I didn't play, so I'm going, as opposed to, you talk to college coaches all the time, and they're like, we have a team that competes for national championships at the Division I level. That is always going to be maybe a special freshman, but it's junior and senior heavy because they're experienced. And this kid could have been so good for us in their sophomore, but for sure their junior year, and helped us win that. But they left because they didn't want to wait.
Because they thought that they can just step onto the field.
Exactly.
And
everybody was the best at their club when you come into that level.
Exactly.
Everybody was the best. So now you have to redefine the pecking order.
And I don't think they're ready for that. And even if they played high school, they're always the better player on their high school.
Yeah.
They've always been the best on their ECNL team, and then they get to Nebraska, or they get to Michigan State, or they go to North Carolina, and it's, unless you're super special and you're on the national team pool, it's just, it takes a year. It takes 2 years.
Absolutely.
And if you have a new player come in to nationals, it takes a little while to get to know them and to build trust between each other.
Yep.
And the coach needs to be able to trust the player just as much as the player needs to be able to
100%.
trust the coach. So why are you expecting to walk onto the field as a freshman and make an impact?
Best players can adapt in 3 months.
Yeah.
The best. So
The
think about
best.
the best. So for everybody else, it's 6 months to a year sometimes. And so that's the tough
It's
part.
like your
That's
first spring season.
Yeah, and that's a lot of times you get arguments from like smaller clubs of like, don't go to ECNL at U13, U14. Go in high school, and you're like, you actually need these 2 years to get used to the level because it's different.
Before you're going
Bingo.
into the
College
recruiting
Exactly.
era.
Because if your adaptation period is in the, and that's, I have the unique perspective now because I've been in every league, and it is a different animal, right? And that's, I heard it before, and you go, yeah, we play them in friendlies all the time, we get it. And then you're in it, and you're like, nope, I get it. It is a different animal in a good way, but you can't just step into it. It takes a bit, and that's okay. That's what the top level is, right? So coming into that as a player, as a team, as a coach, as everything, it takes time to adapt to it all and be able to be successful and thrive in it. So if you do that, like you said, at 15, 16, now you're adapting and you're making mistakes that don't necessarily define you, but that's in front of the college coaches, as opposed to you come in at 13, 14, and now you've got it, you're ready, you're coming in when everybody's level, and you can thrive.
Do you think that we could ever have where ECNL is girls only, and then MLS Next is the boys, and then it's just you have the girl side and you have the boy side, and because the ECNL does such a good job with the girls, and the MLS Next does a pretty good job with the boys.
Yeah.
And do you ever see that kind of being a thing
On paper, and like it would be great if there was entities. You look at the tough part is you go, if you look at it like these ideas are good to throw out, and I think we all like all right, what it could be, but when you really peel it back and you go, okay, at the end of the day, the leagues are also a service industry, right, for the clubs, and you go, so okay, in the actual MLS academies are their own thing, even within MLS Next,
of
right?
course.
So you go, okay, so it's everybody else, MLS academies. They don't typically have female programs. If they do, okay, 1 or 2 maybe, but they don't. So you go, okay, so there's now a gap, right? And then you go, all right, some of the just boys clubs, they don't have a girls side. So now you get like a little bit of a disparity of how do you serve clubs together? You can't really. So it's like when you peel back the layers, I think it becomes very difficult from a logistical challenge.
Right.
And I think that's the like there are incredible merits to just a team-based league of earning it. There are big merits to club league because a club has to be really good.
Right.
And then there's merits to exactly what you said, but it's how do you create it in reality where you provide without a gap? Because for it to be the top level, it has to be the best, and each gender is different with that, right? So I think that's the really hard part of creating one true thing.
Right.
I think are there things that could get better? 100%. Will we ever get to that? I just don't see it.
Right. Do you think I came up with this as well, because you know how like the Hawks and Wolves broke apart.
Yeah.
Now the Wolves are getting back on the girls' side at the younger ages.
Yeah, they've got
right?
some younger kids. Yep.
But I'm wondering if, in the long term, could we see girls-only clubs more and boys-only clubs more? Because I always feel like, let's use the Flash as an example, it's a girls' club.
Okay.
It's a girls' club.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they have boys and they're in the boys ECNL, but the girls are their bread and butter, and that's the higher level, if that makes sense.
Understood.
And I feel like if you ever coach two teams, you always have a favorite. I feel like if you're a club director, you always have a favorite side or a top side, one or the other.
Well, if it comes from where you had experience, right?
Right.
Because it's very rare. Gone are the days for the most part. Michigan was one of the states where you could do it, where you could coach a high school boys and a high school girls team, because opposing high school schedules, right?
Exactly.
So you'd have people do 2 and 2, and they'd be at 4 teams and full time. So I think it's, there is some stuff to it. I think you get into, again, like just the pure, and this goes into the business operations part of clubs of, okay, uniform volume ordering plus facilities. Can you fill it? Is the cost going to go up? So you get into all these different things of, if you don't have enough teams, your already high fees skyrocket, because now this facility, like you said, $850 an hour for an indoor space. You think about, okay, you need 3 blocks, but you can't afford to have 4 teams on a field. You need 8 to make it. But now, how do you fill the rest? And then, because these facilities won't rent to you unless you get a pretty big piece of the pie. So how do you do that? So without, I think, a balancing piece, you also get into that. And now you go to your uniform provider and you go, hey, we were a 4,000 player club. Now we're a 1,500 player club. And they're like, okay, here's your new rate for uniforms. And you go, oh God.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there's a lot of pieces on that. I think but if you can get into, I don't think that a director should be in charge of 2 genders. I think that it should be there's an ECNL boys director, there's an ECNL girls director, right? Because then their focus is purely on that gender, that platform, that level.
Right.
Right? Just like, like for us, Henry oversees all of Union, right?
Yeah.
And then we have, each area has their own directors that oversee that. So it allows a real focus, as opposed to, no matter how good a job you want to do, you get stretched too thin.
Yeah.
So you have to have people who, this is their expertise, and let them be experts, right? And then you have to everyone has to be on the same page. Otherwise your club just becomes a bunch of sites competing a little bit. But if everybody understands, this is the club, this is where players go at these ages and at these levels, and this is how it comes together, these are the people in charge of each, this is how you communicate, then you're in a situation now where you can make it work, right? And then you have, okay, like ECNL girls is me, ECNL boys is Zane. Everybody knows that, and so everything is dealt with that. Zane and I work together really well, because we have girls go train with the boys all the time, and he's awesome about it. Yep, tell me, who do you want to come? Here's their schedule. Boom.
That's awesome.
And they go, right? And so it's a situation of, all right, and we play each other all the time. Like, that's the cool thing, our teams play.
Yeah.
Not the same ages, because obviously the physical differences, but in training sometimes we'll go do, my 09 girls, before we went and had a big league game, we played a 9v9 game, just indoor, because the space happened to work out brilliantly against Luke's 2010 ECNL boys. It was awesome, right? And it made, our speed went way up. We got punished in some things. We were like, okay, we got to fix that. We're going right into the next game. It was awesome for us. So our coaches all work together with that, which is great. So it's not just hey, you can train with boys, box check. It happens in reality, right. Especially this spring season when we don't have league games for our high school ages. That's what I've been coordinating with Zane on. Hey, these players, we want to push. We want to get them in the boys environment. Boom, done. We're going to get these players in the USLW environment. Or boom, done. We're going to do all these different pieces to help accelerate player development. But Zane's stuff is very much Zane's. Mine's very much mine. We work together in terms of, hey, this is how I run mine. This helps operationally, so that they can mirror each other to a degree.
Right.
But that's his expertise. This is my expertise. And then we work together at the best that we can in terms of how do we make the club great together. Because a lot of them have siblings in each program.
Of
and so
course.
I want our boys to be awesome, just like Zane wants our girls to be awesome, because it helps us all get better as nationals, as a club.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so hard to have kids in different clubs. That's insane.
yeah, it just the logistics of getting kids to try. Like, I don't know how parents do it. Like that's yeah.
I don't either. So, okay, real quick. So when you do have like a full 11v11 indoor field and you have 6 teams on or 8 teams, do you communicate to the parents? Because that is one of the most, how do I word this? It's one of the most annoying complaints that I hear from parents. It's like,
Yeah.
well, we only get a quarter of the field.
You're
Do you know
lucky.
do you know how much that field costs?
Yeah.
It's like to run an hour. It's like
And I think we
you're
probably
lucky
could do a
that
better
you're
job.
indoors,
Yeah, we
and
could-
not on a gym floor,
100%,
like I
yeah.
grew up in.
Yeah, and that's the like the thing we've actually talked about next year as well is there is something especially unique to Michigan that I want to bring back to our players is getting them into boarded stuff. So next year that is something that we're looking at is even creating our own mini league or like our training there is let's go because it makes them so tough. And
It
they
does,
play, and there's
nowhere to hide.
Yeah,
and the game is
it's
so
exhausting
fast.
because there's no breaks
You're
while
gonna
it goes
be
up. There's
you're
no out
gonna
of
be
bounds.
so fit.
Yeah.
Imagine you play that for a winter. You come back in the spring for
Yeah.
the rest of your ECNL like
Slide.
season, and they're like, "Who the hell are these people?"
Yeah, and again, we want to tap into what makes Michigan unique, and that's again why the example before of like if I talk to a director over here, boarded is very unique to this area, in terms of how important it is to the historical past of Detroit.
Of course.
Right? So you go and like all the guys I coach with played in it.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's one of those, and you see the benefits immediately. So it's one of those like we love doing it. And so it's like, all right, and the kids love it. So it's, why did we take that out? And it was, at the expense of this. So it's one of those like, let's go do that again.
I
And
blame
hey,
Ultimate.
absolutely gone now, of course. But yeah, it's one of those things of like, okay, let's create these things. And again, this is our Michigan DNA and this is our Nationals way inside of it. So how do we mesh all this together and make it ours? We're not seeking other things. This is who our kids are. This is how they were raised. This is how they grow. This is what makes us special.
Yeah.
Right. And then our special sauce is how we play, how we choose to go about finding ways to develop players and win.
Yeah. Do you guys have a UWS team? I heard you.
Yes,
say
so
that.
we have a
Or
USLW.
USLW.
Yeah, it's Union Macomb. So I coach the girls. Grantham coaches the boys.
Wonderful.
So we made it a club neutral thing so that people didn't, if a Hawks girl or a Liverpool
Smart.
girl, like maybe didn't play for us their whole youth career, they're like, it feels kind of weird putting on a Nationals uniform. We don't want them to feel that way. So it was like, hey, we also want the kind of cool. If you look at all their branding and everything, it's very like Detroit-centric grit and hard work and steel. And hey, we want this to be something. It's like there's a lot of like the Bucks, for example. They have everybody come in to play for the Bucks, like pro prospect guys.
Right.
They know that the Bucks is a great place to go. So it's one of those. They kind of in our head a little bit. You're like, well, the Bucks bring the world to Michigan. We want to bring Michigan to the world. So our teams are actually all made up of only Michigan kids.
Love that.
So it's like it's from us. And it's not like saying anything bad about anybody else. We're like, let's just do that. That would be so like there's so much talent here.
Right.
Let's just make it. So we did that, and last year was the first year for the girls, second year for the boys, and it's growing, and so many people want to be a part of it, and it gives our best youth players the opportunity to go play against college girls. But now again, it brings that kind of a little bit of like street soccer of I'm a 16-year-old, I got to figure out how to play against a 22-year-old.
Exactly.
And now
You're
that's
gonna have to do that in college.
exactly. Again, it's setting the stage for them to go be successful. How do we do that? This is the way, and we get to do it at a really high level because the USL's awesome, in that W League. So we get to play against DCF, and they had the experience of we played a doubleheader with DCFC last year, right after the boys.
That's awesome.
So it was the smoke and the band. It was one of my coolest coaching memories, and it was an unbelievable game. It was one of the best 0-0 ties I've ever seen in my entire life, but it was awesome at Keyworth, and it's like these are experiences for them that they get to have at 16, 17, 18 years old.
Right.
And for us, it's again like, are we going to go win all the games now because we brought in 25-year-olds? No, and we know it. But we're going to do everything we can to go win every game and teach them how to do it against people that are older, faster, stronger, and have experience in this. So now you step onto the field at Michigan State, at Penn State, wherever, and you can go ball.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I've played against 22-year-olds.
Man, thanks for doing this, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Anytime.
Great conversation.
Yeah.
Do you still play at all?
I wish. That's that. I feel like I've damaged my legs so much, but
Exactly.
it's. I would love to, but finding the time, and then I don't know if my body would still do it. That's the. I don't want to find out almost, but.
So I got a socks sponsor.
Yeah.
These are kind of like true socks.
Okay.
But half the price.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And you can gift these to some of your players.
Oh, awesome.
Or wear them. They're
Yeah.
actually very comfortable.
Perfect.
But that's for you, man.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Dude, it's finally nice to meet you in
Yeah,
person.
you too.
And, like,
Absolutely.
man, I love what you guys are doing here. And it's good to be home.
Yeah.
And the soccer's just different here. And people get pissed off at me in Buffalo. But
It is what it is, right?
Exactly. Thanks, brother.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Awesome. And we are
I hate soccer.